second. Now remember, if you're, we should probably just communicate in the. All right, let's see. Is it paused? Oh, there we are. Okay, I'm gonna tweet out that we're. Just really quick, let me. All right, I sent a tweet out. So anyone's on the home page. All right, Lucie should be coming in here any minute. So I see you. You see us below there, yeah?
No. Do not. Nope. I'm just seeing it says it'll begin in a few minutes. I'll refresh.
You should see us, the panel below the viewer. Where are you at?
I'm at Slooh Space Camera live event.
Yeah, look below. You should see us down there, below the viewer, where the feeds are.
Nope. Nope, I don't. I have a still of Lucie Green, not moving. Oh, yeah, there we are now. Okay, here we go.
Yeah, all right. So remember, that's delayed. So don't turn that mute. Make sure that's muted. You could play it, but just mute it.
It's totally muted. It has no sound at all.
All right, good. All right. So Bob, let's just get started. I'm going to get Lucie in here soon. Just for all of you who are joining the website or on the page right now, we're getting prepped for the event. You can see it counting down on the home page of Slooh, about 14 minutes away. The solar eclipse has now left Asia and is probably over the ocean right now as it's making its way to the shores of the western United States. Correct me if I'm wrong, Bob, of course.
No,
Bob is from a...
That's right.
That's right. So, yeah, we're getting ready for the show. We'll introduce Bob once the event officially begins. But we're going to have multiple feeds on this particular event coming out of California, New Mexico, and Arizona, the Grand Canyon. So it should be fascinating stuff. And, you know, Bob, I don't know if I know you were out, so you probably didn't catch it, but the last show from Japan we kind of hopped on, Lucie and Duncan and I hopped on, and the event itself, the weather was pretty poor, so it wasn't great, but it was still fun. It cleared up a little bit, and so it was kind of neat to see it happening. It's kind of neat. So
good. You'll get over it.
Yes, we will. Well, fortunately, the U.S. is much better weather, and I'm seeing some of the previews, and they all look pretty good. So we should be in good shape. Yep, they're all up and running. So I'm looking forward to this one. Let me make sure I get Lucie going. Let me email her really quick. Okay, I emailed her just to make sure she got it. Everything else looks good. So we're T-minus 12 minutes, Bob, so we'll get ready for this.
Okay, how are you doing, Pat? Take a deep breath.
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. I'm
Okay.
having fun.
Good,
These things
good,
are so fun to produce, but they're, obviously, as you can imagine, they're a little stressful.
That's right. That's why I'm saying take a couple of meditative deep breaths, and so you yourself project that you're having fun too. Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely having fun. I'm always having fun with these events. The big ones are, they're more stress than those for obvious reasons. This particular event was picked up pretty big by the media, which was expected, of course. And, Slooh offers the best platform really to experience it. Not only do we give you multiple feeds at the same time, but you can actually snap pics with the pin it button feature. And you can channel surf and see the panel all at once. I'm going to step over here really quick, grab something. Did Lucie come in? Did you see her?
Yeah,
Hi.
Lucie's there. Yep.
Hi, Bob. How are you?
Good, Lucie. How are you?
Yeah, very good, thank you. Yeah, I've been having fun watching the Japanese feed.
Yeah, you're looking good. You're looking younger and younger.
Oh, you're so kind. You've made my night.
What about, how do I look? I probably look haggard, man.
Yeah, you look terrible, Pat.
Yeah, I agree. I
can only see the top of your head now. It's like you're hiding.
Yeah, I know. I'm doing I'm multitasking right here in prep.
Poor thing.
Yeah, I know. It's fun. So if anyone's on the home page, we're just getting ready for the show. It's going to begin in about 10 minutes.
Right.
We have 3 feeds rolling in. I'm looking at them right now. They all look good. So I'm excited
Pat, just
about those.
do me a favor. Is my book backwards or forward? Does it look like it's reversed or is it forward?
Forwards.
Okay, good. Thank you.
It's upside down
Yeah,
now.
looks good.
All right. Oh, he's already got it out. I mean, can you wait till the show begins before we start promoting?
I just remember yesterday how everything was reversed.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's reversed on the home page.
I just didn't want it to look like the
What are you talking? You're talking the Klingon on me? Let's see.
No, it's backwards. That's the title of my last book, backwards.
Right. Okay. So anyway, I'm just double checking a few things, guys. That's why I'm kind of hunched on my.
No. Go ahead. With 4 hours to fill too. I'm not kidding. I'm looking at the table of contents in the Sun's Heartbeat just to see solar topics that can maybe fill in some of the time here.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
4 hours.
4 hours? We're not going 4 hours.
Oh, what are we going? 3? What are we going?
A couple hours. 2.5.
All right, 2. That's not too bad.
Yeah, don't get me stressed out more.
Lucie, here's some possible topics. If we really need time to fill, particles from the sun that influence us. Particles from the sun, because that's kind of sounds eerie.
Yeah. Yeah, we can talk about that. Yeah, no problem.
We could talk a little bit about how some people hide from the sun the last 30 years because of skin cancer, and there's more and more evidence that vitamin D maybe could save our lives, and maybe we shouldn't quite hide as much as we're hiding from the sun.
Yeah, that's been a real interest in Britain recently, and I met a pediatrician when I did an interview once, and he was really interested in looking at solar UV outputs and cases of rickets. So people are thinking about that in Britain.
Good.
What else did you have in mind?
All right. Well, I'm just looking at the table of contents. I'm just making this up right now. Oh, here's something. How we've more and more found that magnetism, which means so little to us here on Earth, is a clue for a lot of the stuff that goes on in the sun, and the tachocline, the discovery of the tachocline. I think it was only back in 1989. And how magnetism, what does that mean to us? Nothing. It's weak here on Earth, but that's sort of the wizard behind the curtain when it comes to a lot of the solar phenomena.
You there?
I think Lucie vanished.
Oh, she did that last time too, so let me, I gotta unplug this. Our feed's still going, my computer's lagging all of a sudden.
All this time I've been hearing you interview Duncan. Where's that? Is that live somewhere, or why am I hearing that?
Interview Duncan?
Yeah, you and Duncan are talking in my ear here at the Hangout in the background.
No, man, I don't know where you're getting that from.
I don't know either.
You can still hear that?
Now I'm hearing Lucie talking.
Well, you're on the delay or something. You must have something running. Look at your windows.
Thank you. Yeah, maybe I hit the Hangout, the on-air Hangout. That's what.
Yeah. You don't want to turn it on because it's just delayed. It'll screw you up.
Yeah. Let me get off that.
So we're T-minus 6 minutes. If you're listening to this on the homepage of Slooh right now, at T-minus 0, you'll get flicked over into live mode.
Okay.
What's that, Bob? Go ahead and get back in.
I'm gonna go out. Invite me back in from scratch. Okay.
You should still see the invite.
All right.
Okay. Well, T-minus. What's that? Oh shit! What happened? Bob, you there? Bob?
Oh, that's much better.
Are you back?
I'm back.
All right, I had a crash warning. That's why I was worried.
No, I'm back. Oh, that's so great that all those voices got out of my head. I thought that was something that was supposed to be happening there. Good.
All right, I just want to make sure.
But no Lucie here.
Well, I see a little. You see that?
Yeah, I see a little a silhouette of her, but the real Lucie's a lot prettier.
Yeah, I don't know if my computer is starting to.
Oh no.
Can you hear me?
I hear you perfectly.
And can you go to the homepage of Slooh? You see everything okay?
Yes, I see everything that I'm seeing in the Google Hangout. I'm seeing on the homepage.
Okay. I just want to make sure. Is it looking pretty?
Yeah, looks good. Looks good.
All right.
But there's no Lucie.
Yeah, she'll come back. She'll come back. I think I'm being Nortonized. All right, so okay, so anyway, yeah, I got confirmation. We're all good. So Lucie should be coming in back. So Bob, let's just get started here. We're going to be counting down. I'm just getting this plug-in. Something plug-in is not working on my end. It's interrupting me, but it doesn't seem to affect the feed. At T-minus 0, which is in about 3 minutes, the viewer will flick over to live. If you're on the homepage right now and it doesn't flick over for some reason, it usually takes 30 seconds to a minute, if not more, due to the amount of traffic that's actually on the homepage right now, waiting for this event to begin. But you can refresh your browser at some point if you have to, just so you know. and hopefully we'll get Lucie back in time for the broadcast. So, Bob, as we're waiting for Lucie, am I nice and clear?
You're loud and clear.
Okay, great. So, yeah, I just got confirmation too. The audio is now been routed into the your mobile devices for iOS. So if you have an iPad or an iPhone, you should hear us as well. Unfortunately, Android support is not there yet for that. It will be up probably in a week or so, just so you guys know out there. And look, we're getting ready here to start this up. We've got 3 feeds coming into this particular show, one out of California, one out of Arizona in the Grand Canyon, and the last one is going to be out of the University of New Mexico with a feed partner. So we're really excited about that happening at this time. And you see me up there. Yep, I'm still working. I just keep getting these weird messages, but it looks like the feed's working.
Yeah, you're looking good. You're on.
I'm looking good. That's what I like to hear. That's what I like to hear. I got to tell my wife that. All right. So anyway, we're excited about this broadcast, and we'll start up officially at T-0. So just hang tight. At T-0, the live feeds will kick in, and when that happens, you'll see the viewer page transform itself into a live channel changer, and you guys can out there feel free to check out all the different feeds that we have available for you. You can pin your photos if you'd like, or you can. The chat box will appear, and you can ask questions in our chat. So we're excited about that too. Anyway.
And Pat, I don't see the chat box, but if somebody asks questions, could you read them and repeat it to me if you want me to answer a question? Just read me, pick a question, read it to me, and I'll field it.
Absolutely, absolutely. That would be great. That would be great. So are you still seeing it counting down? Are everything good on the home page for you?
Yeah, looks good.
I'm getting a null response. Bob, I might have to get back on in the event that I get cut out.
Yeah, it says 36 seconds. It's still counting down.
Okay, I'm just gonna close that one. I don't know what's going on. I keep getting these plug-in issues. Is that Lucie coming back in?
No, I don't see her yet.
That usually is a noise when that happens, that she's trying to get in here.
There she comes. There she is. She's back. She's back. Look at that. Looking prettier than ever.
Oh, she's back. Okay.
I don't know what's happening to my connection here. Sorry about that.
Oh, she's back. Okay. Okay, guys. Everyone's back in the attack. All right. So look, we just switched over to live. You should have seen that on your homepage, Bob. If you're on the Slooh.com site, you notice that you should be seeing some live pictures. There are views coming in from our telescopes. I've got 3 right now: Grand Canyon, New Mexico, and California. So,
I'm just hitting the refresh button to see what we get. I do see the 3 of us at the bottom of the page.
Right. Well, if you do have an issue for some reason, you may have to refresh your browser, given
I see the sun now. I got it. Beautiful sun image from California now. Beautiful sun image.
Yeah. There you go. There you go. So, guys, the chat box is up. We're back. You should see this live feed in the homepage of Slooh.com. If for some reason you don't, then you probably have to
refresh the page.
Refresh your browser.
Yeah.
So, Bob, why don't you get us started? I'm going to introduce you guys really quick before we get rolling. With us today, we have Bob Berman from Astronomy Magazine and author of the recent book, The Sun's Heartbeat. So obviously he knows quite a bit about the sun. And Bob's been a long-time Slooh friend. He's been with us working on various projects now, probably 5+ years. And we're very honored to have him on these shows, especially shows like this that are so significant. Also with us, we have Dr. Lucie Green, and any of you who were on the Japan show earlier tonight will recognize her, obviously. Dr. Green has also been with Slooh now for almost a year on some projects. She was part of the original broadcast we did with Google on the June 2011 Lunar Eclipse, where we actually provided live feeds to the Google Doodle. I don't know if some of you remember that or not, but a part of that broadcast, we had Bob, who's here today, we had Lucie, and we had Duncan, who was on earlier. So all three have taken an active role in Slooh, and we're happy that they've joined us. So Dr. Green actually is a solar researcher out of the Mullard Space Science Laboratory, UCL's Department of Space and Climate Physics. So she obviously knows a lot about the sun as well, and we're really excited about this event because we have 3 really nice feeds coming in right now from 3 different locations. Just so you know, a little quick background on these feeds. We have one coming out of California. All these are live. This is in Red Bluff, California, on a mobile installation that we have set up that's being helmed by Slooh's own Matt Marula. We have another feed out of the Grand Canyon coming in from a friend of ours, Matt Francis, who plays a significant role in helping us do live events. And the third one actually is unique. It's from the University of New Mexico. So that particular event is being offered up from some of our new friends in New Mexico, the University of New Mexico, and we hope to be doing a lot more with them also over time. And that kind of goes back to what Slooh does, is we have the ability to put these together with feed partners from around the world. So if you do have a facility of some sort and like to join in on these events, please shoot me an email at patrick@slooh.com. So now, Bob, let's get started really quick before we get going further here. What is your thoughts about this annular eclipse? If I understand it correctly, the last one that hit the U.S. soil was about 18 years ago. Is that what I was reading about?
Well, I remember on May 10th, 1994, there was one up in our neck of the woods here in the northeastern United States. The weather was clear, and it was pretty darn special. And before I even speak further about this, I'd like to remind people that they can go from one feed to another by clicking on those little greenish blue triangles. That all of the instruments that you mentioned, Pat, are running now. They're all up. It's not that you even have to wait. You yourself can go from the Grand Canyon to New Mexico and to California and see what's happening on the sun live as it is happening. So it's very exciting. I'm very excited by it. Yes, we have not had one in the United States for a long time, although we do get annular eclipses fairly often, and we'll talk about future ones, I think, a little bit later on. Especially when we get our solar researcher back on, Lucie.
Yeah, unfortunately, Lucie dropped out again, so she'll come back. It's a bandwidth issue, but she'll be back shortly, so we'll have her input on what's going on. So, Bob, now talk to us about one of the things we talked about briefly on the last event. It was a little confusing to me when I first started scheduling this thing to think that the event was going to take place first in Asia in the morning and then come over here in the afternoon. That's kind of counterintuitive because we know the sun goes from east to west. And so I was like, well, how could this start in Asia first?
Right.
Maybe
well, it's because,
yeah,
be glad to, Pat. It's because as the moon casts its shadow, it just happens to be casting it right onto planet Earth. Moon is just a little bit too far away for the shadow to reach Earth, but it's heading in the direction of Earth, and it sweeps over Japan, and then it moves eastward. The average speed of the moon is 2,237 miles an hour, if I remember right. And so very rapidly, people under the shadow are seeing the eclipse. And what's very cool is that in California or New Mexico or the Grand Canyon, where you can click on it, the shadow has not yet started. In other words, the moon has not yet touched the edge of the sun, and we are going to see it happen any moment. But while I have Lucie on, I want to mention one thing about your introduction. I appreciate you mentioning The Sun's Heartbeat, my popular book about the sun. But in this book, a lot of the information came from not only historical information by solar researchers, but by interviewing people like Lucie Green. So I don't want to, I found out almost everything I know about the sun by writing a book. They say writing a book is the best way you learn about it. But Lucie is the researcher. This is her life is spent studying and researching, and she has a doctorate in solar astronomy. So this is the person who could give us more information than we even want to hear tonight. But she's the expert.
Yeah, too much probably. I just want to check that you can hear me, okay, Bob?
Yes, you're fine. We hear you.
I can certainly talk about the sun as long as you want. Excellent, good.
Excellent, excellent. Well, I'm showing that this is supposed to start up. The partial phase is going to start up in about 5 minutes or so.
Oh, that's so exciting because and you know where it's going to start first? Of course, our California feed. This is so cool. It's almost like those Will Smith movies where it's the end of the world and where are the first where's the first part of the world going to be destroyed by the aliens? It'll be here. Then it'll be here. Then it'll be here. Well, we can watch the live feed from California, and that's where the moon is first going to be seen to touch the edge of the sun. Then it'll be moving toward the east from there. So it's very cool. We're going to actually see it happen. We also have one of the maps on for you, so if you keep clicking that button on the live screen there, you can see the track of annularity. That is the place where the moon is going to pass centrally across the sun, and where ultimately, an hour from now, we're going to get a ring of fire. But in a much wider area in the west that is not along that ribbon that we have marked out for you. Instead, people there will see the eclipse happen at an angle, and they'll see the moon partially blocking out the sun. So it's also a lesson in geometry, a vivid lesson in showing us the relative distances of the moon and the sun from us, and the speed of the moon as it crosses the sun's face. So it's a living example, a living demonstration of the solar system and the clockwork mechanism of the solar system. And to me, that's the most exciting thing, rather than the science. Frankly, there's not a lot of science behind it, but there's a lot of thrill.
Right, right. So, Dr. Green, why don't you tell us a little bit about the sun and its activity that we've been seeing this year? I mean, I guess the last couple of years it's actually picked up, and as a solar researcher, perhaps you could shed some light on what's going on with the sun and what's been happening lately.
Yeah, so the sun has an activity cycle that's best seen by looking at these dark spots on the surface of the sun called sunspots. And actually, in the California feed that I'm looking at now, you can see some of these black spots on the sun if you look quite carefully. So there are sort of three groups that I can see at the moment, but actually if you zoomed in even more, you'd be able to see smaller black spots, so smaller sunspots on the surface of the sun. And actually the numbers have been picking up over the last year or two, and they'll continue to increase probably into next year, and then they'll start to fade again. And if you look at the sunspots over many, many years, you see that they rise and fall in over a time scale of about 11 years. So the sunspot cycle, or more generally the solar activity cycle, lasts about 11 years. And I'm a researcher who studies solar activity, and that is big eruptions that come from these sunspot regions. So the more I see on the sun, the more excited I get, because that means lots more solar activity.
That's awesome. So I just want to throw out a quick note. If you're on the Slooh.com homepage, you can click the chat Slooh conversation box, and if you post in questions to our panel, I will try to pick them off from that and ask it so people can engage in the conversation as well. So now, Bob, I know you've talked to me about the upcoming total solar eclipse that's happening. Perhaps for our audience, you can explain the difference between an annular and a total, and why the totals really go up another level in spectacular, level of spectacular viewing that we
well,
see.
the difference, I'll be glad to, Pat. The difference is the difference between almost falling in love and finding your soulmate, or looking at a photograph of beautiful, clear, warm Caribbean waters and actually jumping in and swimming in them. An annular eclipse is an interesting event. It does demonstrate the dynamic movement of the solar system, and it'll be fun to watch tonight. A total eclipse, which we who love spectacles in the sky are just totally enamored of. That's the time that the stars come out in the daytime, and geysers of nuclear flame come off the edge of the sun, and animals go crazy, and people weep. Tears come down their eyes, and it almost knocks you backwards. Now, professional astronomers who are studying it, well, okay, you're studying it. But the people who, you know, you don't have to know anything. You just look at it, and you're almost like like an animal. It's something gut-wrenching and animal, and that's a solar totality. And the next one there is going to happen over Australia, Cairns in Australia, on November 13th of this year. Every year has, almost every year has a total solar eclipse, just as actually almost every year has an annular solar eclipse. But if you have a choice, if you can go to one or go to another, certainly go to the total eclipse. In fact, we're going to send Lucie to the next one.
Oh, that would be amazing.
Yeah, I would love to get out to the next one as myself. Bob's been telling me that he starts crying when he sees one, so I think I got to go check it out.
Well, not me, because I don't want to seem like a girly man, but a lot of people do.
Yeah, it's amazing to see people's reaction when they see an eclipse. I thought it would be a time of quiet and contemplation, but actually everyone's so excited. When I saw the one in 2009, everyone started whooping and cheering around me, so it was quite a thrill.
Wait a minute, so you did see a total eclipse?
Yeah, I saw the one that was the longest eclipse of the century in 2009, and we were on a cruise ship chasing the line of totality, so we had, you know, a little bit longer in totality, and it was really good fun.
So there you go, Pat. That's why you must go and see that. It's just stunning, just spectacular. But you know, all eclipses, and by the way, it's starting. You can start to see the sun touching the moon touching the edge. I think, unless I'm imagining it. Well, we'll wait a minute. And we'll
yeah. You can. I could see it on the California feed for sure.
Yeah,
the bottom part.
That's right. It looks like we're getting our first contact right now of the moon trespassing in front of the sun. You know, for a long time, we were trying to figure out what the relative distances are, because we have one of the most stunning coincidences in all of nature, Pat. If you believe in coincidences, here's a good one. We only have two disks in our sky, two circles, the sun and the moon. One is 400 times farther away than the other, but it also happens to be 400 times larger. So as a result, both appear the same size, but not precisely the same size, and that's what's going on tonight, that the annular eclipse is annular because the moon happens to be just about at the farthest possible point in its orbit. It's 2 weeks since that you know, so-called giant moon. Remember, all the media was going crazy about that, the super big moon, because the moon had come to its closest point. Well, that was its closest point of the year to Earth 2 weeks ago at full moon. And that means it's now on the opposite side of its orbit at the farthest point, at its apogee. So no wonder it's not close enough and therefore large enough to completely cover the sun. But it's going to try, and we see the eclipse now beginning. Now it's beginning.
Yeah. In fact, if people click those channel changers on the Slooh.com homepage, they'll go to the map. I put a couple maps. You can Google those and find them anywhere, but I threw them in here just so people could see how the annularity part is going to occur. Hey, before we go on, I just want to, there's a question in one of the chat rooms here. Lucie, is there such thing as tornadoes on the sun? Is that true? If so, is it really as bad as they say? That's a question out of the chat.
That's a really good question. There was some research that was actually done in the UK, and it was talked about in, I think it was April this year. And so, yes, researchers have found tornadoes on the sun. And what they mean by that is when they look at the sun's atmosphere, we look at gases glowing in ultraviolet light in particular. And when they looked at these gases, they made these spiral patterns whizzing around. And so this circular motion of the gas, people naturally then thought, oh, well, we see circular motions of gas in the Earth's atmosphere, and we call them tornadoes. It's slightly different on the sun because the gases are controlled by magnetic fields, actually, in the atmosphere of the sun, but they seem to follow these same circular patterns, and it was an exciting and visually very beautiful discovery. So yeah, great question.
And can I butt in right now to say that if our, changing the topic slightly, if our viewers and listeners will click on the button and go from the California feed to the Grand Canyon feed, all of this is live in New Mexico, they'll see an amazing thing, which is that from California, the moon is slightly covering up the sun, but it is not at all from the Grand Canyon and not from New Mexico. Now, this is a very, very key, important a fact that the world was going crazy over just a couple of centuries ago, which means that if you're located in one part of the world, you're seeing the moon from a different angle than you are from another part of the world. In other words, the moon is so close, being only 250,000 miles away, that there's actually a different perspective from locations as close to each other as Nevada and California. And those are people who think that there's a flat Earth or who don't believe this stuff is real, here is your proof, because at this very moment, from California, the angle of people in California are in line with the moon and the sun. But if you click over, you'll see that at this very moment, from the Grand Canyon, the moon is not in line with the sun in the sky, showing that just that little space of a few hundred miles changes the celestial geometry. And this, to me, is one of the most stunning features of the annular eclipse, at least the way Slooh is imaging it, because in the past, you could not see multiple images just from your armchair or just from your computer. You could not see them live and watch it unfold. Thanks to Slooh, we're seeing this for the first time.
Yeah, and you can really see the sunspots well. Oh, sorry, I was going to say in the Grand Canyon feed, you can really see the sunspots beautifully. There's 3 groups running from top to bottom in the image. Beautiful. And
they're very important. I have to say, I just got back from Alaska a month ago, where I had a group of about 45 people in quest of the aurora borealis. And we saw a fantastic aurora. I know Lucie will be jealous over this too.
Yeah.
And that was thanks to these very sunspots. So these things that look just like acne, they look like blotches, they look like a defect in our lenses, as if somebody hadn't cleaned them. But each one of those spots that you see is larger than our planet Earth, and each of those are tremendous, powerful storms on the sun that I know we'll talk about later. I'm looking forward to Lucie talking about this later, that each one of those spots, in fact, where they're located on the sun right now is key also to whether the material that they give off, if they escape into space, reaches Earth or not. The location on the sun is very important. Because only material, only flares or prominences, coronal mass ejections that are on the western side of the sun, that are a little bit to the right of the midpoint as we see it when we look up at the sun, are in a trajectory to follow this curved path towards Earth. The sun's solar wind forms a bit of a spiral pattern in space. It's a little bit like a lawn sprinkler. You know those revolving ones that spray water in kind of a curvy path? Well, the material from the sun follows that kind of a path to Earth, and it will get here if the sunspots are in the correct part of the sun to produce that. And Lucie, from what you're seeing, are any of those spots in a correct position to affect us?
Yeah, there are some. There are some that would affect us if they produce different events. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. One's on the right-hand side as you look at the sun in the west, which I think, yeah, so on the west. We always have to remember that when you look at the sun, east and west are the opposite way round. And I've been studying the sun for 14 years, and I still have to stop and think.
Me too. Me too. I have to do the same thing. Because you see,
so when we
right, because as what Lucie means is that when we look into the sky, it's clear to us what direction is east and what is west. We know that the sun and the moon rise in the east, go across the sky, and set in the west. But when we look up at the sun by convention, what we call the eastern side and the western side would be very different if you lived on the moon or lived on the sun. Think about it. You'd be facing the opposite way. You'd be turned around. And so what you would call the east and the west would be different from what is our east and west when we face it. But by convention, we call the sun's eastern and western side the way we look at it, rather than how it actually is if you were there. Right?
Right. Right.
Yeah. So it is confusing.
Oh,
So as you look at the sun, it features on the right-hand side.
There's so many
so
confusing
if
things.
north and south are right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So some of these sunspots could be causing problems for us.
Like, for example, Earth has, you will be talking about the solar magnetism a lot in this during this eclipse. And of course, Earth has magnetic poles, and there's a lot of paranoid press about the poles shifting and the north turning into south and the south turning into north. And it's all bathed in misconception. And it starts with the fact that the actual magnetic north pole of Earth is actually in the south, and the south pole is in the north, meaning that we define the Earth's south pole is where the material is going straight down into the Earth in a downward direction, and that happens to be located in the far north, in northern Canada. So by convention, we call that the north magnetic pole, even though physicists who are into this stuff in their hallways, they whisper to each other. They say, yeah, but it's really the South Pole. We know it's really the South Pole, but we'll keep calling it the North Pole.
Hey, Bob, just a couple of quick points. If anyone who's watching the event take place on the homepage of Slooh, you can pin it. Pin your photos. Go ahead and snap any channel. Go ahead and share them out to your buddies or keep them on your Pinterest boards. That's available to you as well. We're getting the chat box is going crazy. I'm getting all these requests. Someone wants me to say hi to Tara D for me. She's listening to you guys right now. So hi, Tara D. Thanks for coming on the show. We're getting a lot of questions, so I'm going to filter through those. But before we do that, I want to tell everyone that Slooh, I want to say thanks to all our feed partners for providing these feeds from California, New Mexico, and Arizona. As part of this, please click on the membership link on the Slooh.com homepage and learn more about how to become a member. It does support our live programming. As you can see, we do a lot of other events, including one coming up this Friday on JFK's moon anniversary. And we're going to have Apollo engineers on the show, along with Duncan Kopp. You can learn more about Duncan on the lowest panel below there on the homepage. About he's a film producer out of the UK. If you can't afford to become a member or would like to learn more about becoming a member, where you can control Slooh telescopes, please consider it. Otherwise, please make a contribution to the programming. We really appreciate it. It helps offset the tremendous cost that it does to put these shows on. So, Bob, go ahead and I just saw it looks like California is updating pretty well. What do you think? When do you think the Grand Canyon is going to start up?
Well, I'm expecting the Grand Canyon already. It's actually a little bit worrisome to me that the eclipse is this far along in California without us seeing that first bite from there. So it makes me think that perhaps it's not updating, or perhaps I have the celestial geometry wrong in my head, and just because I'd rather not be wrong alone, I'm going to bring Lucie into it. What do you think, Lucie? Wouldn't you expect to see a place a few hundred miles away starting the eclipse by now?
Yeah, the shadow races across the surface of the Earth, so I don't know the exact timing, but I would we should be seeing something soon.
I got a little chart here. Let me see. I know Matt Francis, he's out in the Grand Canyon. He mentioned to me that they were having internet issues where he's at, so he may be delayed.
Of course, he's in the Grand Canyon. They have mules there. They don't have internet. They have donkeys.
Right. I'm going to look and see. Let's see. I'm going to look and see. I can see when he's uploading. I can tell, actually. So go ahead, you guys.
But you know what? If all we had was this beautiful California feed, that would do it, because there is the eclipse. You know, I mean, it's pretty. It's almost superfluous to have it from multiple locations. We have that, you know, to guard against clouds, because Slooh is careful, and because we have an unlimited budget, thanks to our subscribers, we are able to have telescopes located almost in every backyard in America. So in case of clouds, we were able to make sure that we brought you a feed. But look at California. This is just gorgeous.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna get in touch with Matt when I have time. It looks like his feed is stalled out a little bit. It must be his bandwidth issue that he was talking about. So right now, the University of New Mexico feed that we're providing and our feed out in California, those are both happening as we speak. Whereas the other feed right now is a little bit behind. So I'm sure Matt will get that updated shortly as the event progresses. So I think the best feed right now for everyone is on the California.
Oh yeah, that's gorgeous. That's gorgeous. And of course, just for the basics, for the people who are tuning this in, the moon looks black for two reasons. Number one, we're looking at new moon. So when on any given month when we see new moon, we're looking at the night side of the moon, the dark side of the moon. So even if the sun weren't there, it would still look black. But because the sun and the sun's brilliance is directly behind it, by contrast, the moon is going to look doubly black because we have filters so that the sun doesn't blind everybody. So for those reasons, don't expect to see a moon with craters and mountains, because when you see mountains and craters and all the other nice features on the moon, they're being illuminated by the sun from this direction. And the sun right now is in that direction, behind it. So all we're going to see is a black cameo of a moon. And if we look very closely, we might see some mountains on its surface. The highest mountains on the moon are about the same height as the highest mountains on Earth. But other than in profile, that's the best we're going to see so far as lunar detail. What's fascinating is that here's another fascinating fact. I'll bet Lucie knows this. I mean, how could she not? She's dedicated her life to the sun, and the moon is the same size. But the moon is 2,160 miles across, and it moves through space an average of 2,237 miles an hour. And those two numbers are almost the same. What I'm saying is that the moon is the only body in the known universe that moves its own width in an hour. And if you doubted this, watch what happens. In 1 hour, we're going to see the moon go from having first touched the edge of the sun, as seen from California, to completely covering the sun, or at least as much as it can cover the sun, because it's going to be a little bit too small to cover the sun. We'll see instead that famous ring of fire.
So, Bob, we've got people on the chat room asking how dark it's going to be in the shadow. Now, I know that it's not going to go as dark as a total solar eclipse. The sky won't go black, but what sort of thing will people be seeing?
It will look actually quite nice from there. The last one that I saw, again, May 10th, 1994, the Annular Eclipse, it will be not total, but it will be covered enough so that the timbre of light will change. The amount of contrast on objects will change. Right before the annularity, every shadow cast by bushes and trees, all the little spaces between that we normally see on the ground beneath bushes and trees that form little tiny white dots will now be crescents. So it'll be a very eerie cornucopia of thousands or millions of crescents covering the ground. And at the moment of annularity, those will be rings that look like wedding rings, strewn, hundreds of them, thousands of them, strewn beneath every tree and every bush. So this is strange, eerie stuff. As for the lighting itself, there's a quality to the light that will look like higher contrast. It'll look like colors are more saturated. It won't look like a cloudy day quite. Rather, it'll look like a strange, different kind of stars in the sky. No, it will not be as spectacular as a totality. We know that, but it still has its own charm for the people who have traveled to that line, or actually who are close enough to that annularity line to see a, let's say, 99% eclipse. That will do the job.
No, hey guys, I want to point out really quick. If you go to the New Mexico feed, you're going to start seeing the partial start there as well for people out there watching the show right now. So New Mexico is also showing it. Hey, Dr. Green, can you tell us more about the sunspots we're seeing? And I think people forget how big the sun is. Actually, I mean, how big are those sunspots, and what's actually happening? What is it? Maybe we could tell us more about the sunspot itself.
Yeah, so these sunspots they're huge. I mean, they look tiny on the surface of the sun, but the sun is as wide as 109 Earths lined up side by side, 109 Earths. So these sunspots can be much bigger than the size of the Earth itself, and they can grow to be many times the size of the Earth. They're huge features. And they appear dark because they are slightly cooler than the gases around it. So what we're looking at here are, it's not a solid surface on the sun. The sun is a gas, a big ball of gas. So there's not a solid surface that you could stand on like you can on the Earth. So the yellow features, or the yellow surface that you can see, has a temperature of roughly about 6,000 degrees. And then the sunspots will be maybe 5,000 degrees. So still really hot, but cooler than the surrounding glow. And the reason they're cooler is because they're regions of very, very intense magnetic field. So Bob's been talking about the fact that the Earth has its own magnetic field with a North Pole and a South Pole. And the Sun also has a North Pole and a South Pole. But then it has these curious sunspots with also North and South Poles on the surface. So the Sun is a very magnetic object. And in sunspots where the magnetic field is very strong, it manages to allow the hot gases to cool down just slightly so that they appear darker. So they're fascinating structures.
Yes. Let me also qualify that when Lucie is speaking, she's speaking from Europe, which has switched regrettably to the metric system. And so
half and half.
Yes. So when she says 4,000 or 5,000 or 6,000, she means Celsius or centigrade.
Yeah, yeah.
And,
That's
and
a very good point. Yeah.
If you're used to Fahrenheit, then you think of the sun's surface as between 10 and 11,000 degrees. And incidentally, that's just barely hot enough, by the way, to have everything as gas, because there are tungsten and carbon. This is just a little bit above their boiling point. You can almost have liquid pools of carbon. Not quite, but almost.
Yeah. Hey, just really quick.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Lucie. Sorry.
I was going to say that's a really nice way to put it, because normally we think and some helium, but you're absolutely right. There's all these other different elements there, and what we find on the sun, the composition, the elements, is exactly what we have on the Earth. We're all made out of the same stuff.
Wow. I wanted to point out a couple of things out of the chat room here, guys. Just some questions coming in. So if you give me a second, I'll ask them. It's moving so fast, though, I'm having a hard time keeping up with it.
Yeah, there's a lot of chat coming in.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff rolling in here. But anyway, Bob, so what other topics would you like to discuss about the sun and how you can educate some of our listeners and viewers tonight?
Well, there's so many aspects to the sun. We talked earlier about, Lucie and I, about In the Sun's Heartbeat, the new book about the sun. You can talk about health, because people have been hiding from the sun now for the last 30 years because they're afraid of skin cancer. And of course, we understand why people should be afraid of skin cancer, but a lot of evidence is starting to accrue that we're hiding too much, and that vitamin D produced by exposure to the sun may be one of the greatest anti-cancer agents that there is. The Vitamin D Council in the United States, and if you speak to any of the experts, like Dr. Cannell there, they'll tell you, or at least they believe, that if we got much more sunlight than we're getting, it could prevent 200,000 cancers a year, and contribute perhaps a few more skin cancers, not many, because the key is to get as much sunlight as you can without burning. Now, you know, if you're a blonde or a redhead and you have very fair skin and you have a lot of freckles, you know that you can't get a lot of sun without burning. We all know how much sun we can get without burning. So the key is to expose yourself, both sides, probably at least 20 minutes a day, out in your underwear or in a bathing suit. Go out in the streets of London. Just walk out there and get all the sun you can, but without burning. And especially children now. You know, there was a time not too long ago when children would, after school, they'd go and play in playgrounds, and their parents would let them roam free, and they knew they had to come back for dinner. Well, first because of a fear of sexual predators, and then because of the video game craze, and nowadays because of just being on computers, kids generally, and also because parents are now leery to let their kids through. So because of that, the kids are not outside. They're inside all day long. They're not getting sun. And there's more and more evidence that we human beings were built to be under the sun. Our skins are made so that we develop as much vitamin D in 20 minutes of sunlight as you would get from drinking 100 glasses of milk. So Dr. Cannell, John Cannell of the Vitamin D Council asks rhetorically, why does nature make our skin produce so much vitamin D, such a huge amount, so quickly when we're exposed to full sunlight? And the implied answer is that we are meant to have a lot of vitamin D in our bodies, a lot more than perhaps even many physicians today say is the normal amount. So, Pat, you were asking what topics we could talk about. Well, there is one, that the sun is not our enemy, it's our friend. And we grew up with it. We're not cave people. We're not mole people. We used to be a gregarian society, culture. And for the last 100 years, okay, so we now are in factories, or we're now in offices. We're now behind windows, which, by the way, block ultraviolet and prevent us from creating any vitamin D in our skin. We stay behind windows. More and more offices, you can't even open the windows. The glass is fixed. Okay, so that's the case. We can't turn back the clock. But at least we should not go along with these scare stories, and when we do go out, hide under hats, put on lotion that blocks the sun at all times. We should let ourselves get as much sun as we can without burning.
Right, absolutely. Now, just really quick, you guys out there listening and watching, if you follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, subscribe to us, even circle us on our G+ page, we'll keep you updated on upcoming events. We do that frequently, and we do have, as you can see on the homepage, other events counting down. We do a lot of different stuff. We don't just do the big ones like this, but we do have a whopper coming up on June 5th. The transit of the Venus, and we'll have over 6 hours plus of programming, which will include Bob for sure, and I'm hoping Dr. Green will join us. She's still looking through her schedule. Right now, she's got some activities planned with the BBC in the UK, but I think we can squeeze her in, I'm hoping, for at least a half hour. What do you think, Dr. Green? Is it looking good?
Yeah, I hope so. I think if I can get internet connection on the island of Svalbard, I'll definitely like to join you and have a chat about what people think of the event.
And for the people who are wondering what we're talking about, there's not going to be another one of those until the year 2117, where we see the planet Venus across the face of the sun. What's fascinating is right now we're seeing the nearest celestial body to us, the moon. Right now we're seeing it cross in front of the face of the sun. And in only a few weeks, we're going to see the second closest celestial body, which is Venus, the planet Venus, cross the face of the sun. Both of them happening almost at the same time. It's stunning, it's fascinating, and nobody alive, nobody who's living now, will see another transit of Venus. So that June 5th event that Slooh is going to carry start to finish, that's your only chance for it. I don't think you want to be around. If you're a kid today, if you're a teenager, do you really want to be in your 30s or your 40s, far in the future, and somebody says, hey, remember way back then, remember that transit, remember how cool that was? And you don't want to be saying, oh, I didn't see it, because this is your only chance.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Well, we'll cover it live for you, so you don't have to bother trying to see it. Obviously, looking at the sun is dangerous unless you have the proper equipment. So, but Slooh will be covering it live on June 5th, and we'll have 6+ hours. So make sure to come back, and we'll have a great panel. We have a lot of people lined up in this thing, including people from NASA coming in, and so it'll be fun. We always try to put on a fun show for everyone. So, Bob, I'll keep looking at the chat room. Got any more thoughts? What we're looking at right now? It looks like it's progressing pretty well in California.
Yeah, and that's the nice thing is that you know, on Earth you can't always depend on things. People get cynical. You know, there's a presidential election this year. In some cases, relationships come and go. There's all sorts of things you deal with on Earth. But here, that moon really is chugging through space at 2,237 miles an hour. It's not going to turn around. It's not going to change its mind. It's heading in a straight line, and it's kind of a little bit of a pat on our backs that researchers like Lucie, even though she doesn't predict eclipses for a living, she's involved in much more intimate with the sun items than that. But here it is, predicted decades in advance to the second, and that really shows that we have the clockwork mechanism of the solar system really down. Thanks to the likes of Newton and Einstein, we really understand this stuff perfectly. You didn't even need Einstein for this. Newton was good enough, actually.
Yeah, it is amazing that we can predict this down to the split second. You know, and the Venus transit, a tiny planet, well, it appears tiny against the disk of the sun, only transits twice every 120 years, and yet we know exactly what's going to happen, and that's amazing. It enables Slooh to be able to set up the cameras and be bang on time. Absolutely fantastic.
That's right.
Yeah, it really helps to be able to plan these. You know, when sometimes something will happen in space and we have to be, you know, we try to cover it quickly. Those are really difficult to do, whereas these events are difficult, but we at least can plan for them well in advance.
That's right. That's right. I remember you've sent some of the Slooh cameras and Slooh telescopes. I remember we've done this in different parts of the world, and our Slooh technical people have had to battle local conditions and clouds and customs and visas and stuff like that to be present for the various celestial events that are not seen in the whole world, but are only seen in certain locations, like this annular eclipse is going to be coming up.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting when we, you know, this is to give some background. When Google approached us back in, I guess it was early 2011, about potentially doing a doodle on the lunar eclipse, you know, that was we weren't really set up at the time to really handle it. I mean, we didn't have the platform properly to do it. So we worked with them really closely about building the special platform to make these type of events work properly on such a large scale. Because when these events go off, they are worldwide popular. You know, there's one thing that it just seems like when these events happen, everyone is interested in them, and the traffic loads are just intense and extreme, and it's really important. And it was really important in that event that we cover it, not only provide the feeds, but actually be able to handle the loads that were going to happen as the doodle went live. And in fact, it was a really cool event, as you guys both remember. It was our first really big event that we pulled off. That, you know, we had that much traffic. I mean, there was, I don't know exactly, but there was probably 5 to 10 million, tens of millions of people that came in at once at one point. And it was just a fascinating thing to see. And we put feeds, if you guys remember, we had them in Cyprus, South Africa, and Dubai. And, you know, so those are all 3 different locations around the Earth that we provided live coverage of. And, you know, that's what it takes to do these events. You can't do it any other way because of the weather patterns, bandwidth issues, and those type of things. So it was pretty fascinating to see us pull that off. And, you know, and this event right now is just going down perfect. I had to turn the Grand Canyon feed off because it wasn't updating. I haven't got an update yet from Matt. So I'm sure his bandwidth is screwed up out of the Grand Canyon because he mentioned he's having problems. But we have 2 good feeds out of the New Mexico and California feeds. So that's our primary feeds tonight.
And we are watching. We continue to see the annular eclipse in California. The moon is approaching the halfway point of covering the sun. When it fully covers the sun, we're going to see something very unusual in that instead of a total eclipse, because the moon is at the far side of its orbit, it's apogee, and so it will leave a annulus, or ring, of sunlight completely around it. Now, it's not that this kind of event is rare. It's that the location is kind of rare. For example, we're going to have another annular eclipse in other parts of the world, Africa, Australia, the middle of the ocean. We're going to have one on May 10th of next year. That is 2013. We'll have one in November of 2013. We'll have one in 2014 and 2016 and 2017 and 2019 and 2020, 21, 23, and then another one in 23. All those years we'll have annular eclipses somewhere in the world. What makes them difficult and to see is the path. And, you know, one of our feeds, Pat has provided a map showing you where the path is. And unless you're in that path, you will not see it as an annular eclipse. And That's what's cool, to see it as a ring of sunlight. And we're located here in California, just in the right place to see it. So that's what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So, Bob, what's going to happen outside of the path of annularity? Maybe you can tell people what they may see if they're careful.
Yeah, they're careful.
Obviously, you don't want to go look at the sun.
No, if they happen to have shade number 12 welder's goggles, or if they have some eclipse goggles left over from a previous eclipse, or if they prepared themselves, do not use regular sunglasses. I've been asked now in the last few days about sunglasses. No good. Back in the old days, our grandparents would use smoked glass. They'd get a piece of glass and they'd use a candle flame, and the smoke from a candle flame to make the glass dark. They'd smoke that glass. It sounds like smoking grass, doesn't it? But no, they would smoke glass and then look at the sun. But now we found that that is insufficient to block out the sun's dangerous ultraviolet rays. You need welder's goggles, shade number 12 or 14, or you need special eclipse goggles. So if you are in the western states and are not in the path of annularity, yes, you will see, even at this moment, you will see the moon partially covering the sun. But please, do not go out and look at it. Don't squint. Don't glance at it. It's not that the sun is more dangerous than it usually is. The sun is always dangerous to look at directly. It's just that we don't normally go around staring at it. Now there's a reason that we might want to stare at it for several seconds. And the heat from the sun, not to mention the ultraviolet, can concentrate on your retina rather quickly. Now, I will say, in studying the literature, I've not, and I want to hear Lucie's take on this too, because I've not found a case in the medical literature where anyone sustained a permanent retinal lesion, a detectable retinal lesion, in anything less than 2.5 minutes of sun staring, which suggests that you actually could look at the sun briefly, but just shouldn't keep looking at it. There have been some cases of drunks or people on a bet, on a dare, who kept staring at the sun and who did actually lose some of their eyesight, either temporarily or permanently, because they had a burn, a lesion on their retina. But I've not seen a case where it happened in less than a couple of minutes. What have you seen, Lucie?
Yeah, I haven't heard anything either, but if you try and persist in looking at it, even before damage is done, you're going to overwhelm your eyes. And was it, I think it was Galileo, wasn't it, who ended up, or was it Newton? I forget now the story. But if you do stare for a long time at the sun, then you'll give temporary damage to your eyes so that you can't see properly for a while, and you'll have to go and rest your eyes, even if you haven't sustained permanent damage. So it's best just to go with your blink reflex and not stare at the sun, definitely.
Yeah,
You're
absolutely,
never sure.
absolutely. The early observers of sunspots, there was a famous priest and Galileo, and there were a number of them that were competing with each other. They were all in the sun's heartbeat, all in that book. I'm told the publisher says, yeah, you should mention it at least once an hour. So, okay, I'm doing that. Go ahead. Little Brown, the publisher, I'm doing it, mentioning it once an hour. And some of the historical stories are quite funny, amazing. Galileo used to have fights with other people who claimed that they had seen sunspots first, and they almost got into food fights about these things, and all of these people showed signs of developing eye problems because of it. And then later on, solar researchers used colored glass as filters. We now know that even that's not good enough for it.
Yeah.
So don't mess around with your eyesight. Stay with us here at Slooh. Look at it safely on your monitor, and your eyesight is too precious to take a chance with.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
Absolutely.
the early Venus transit observations were taken through coloured glass, and it's quite scary to think about that now. Do a projection technique if you're at all worried.
Yeah, exactly.
Camera.
Exactly. That's definitely what you want to do. So if you're watching this broadcast right now, I just want to point out that membership supports this type of live program that Slooh produces. We produce a wide range of shows, and I would click on the membership link. We do have a special offer today. If you become a yearly membership to Slooh, you get a 200-minute mission code to become a member, which you could give to a friend or a son or a daughter or a nephew or what have you. So please consider it. If that's, I understand that if the economies have been tough lately, for sure. If that's not going to work for you, a contribution of any amount would really help this cause of trying to produce more live programming for the world to enjoy. So we appreciate that. You just click on the membership link and you can learn more about those. And also, as Bob knows, if you become a member of Slooh, you get the opportunity to actually control high-powered observatories around the world where you can snap your own pics. And it's all for all levels. It's not necessarily just for experts or hobbyists, but even for the kids, too, could do it. So, Bob, let's move on. It looks like things are progressing well out of both California and New Mexico. This event is going to take, what, about 2 hours to complete, round trip?
Yes,
3 hours?
because of that amazing fact that the moon, alone among all the celestial bodies we know of in the universe, all the planets, all the moons, it's the only one that moves its own width per hour. So it will take 1 hour to cover the sun, and then another hour to uncover itself. So it's pretty cool to watch this happen. Now, we will have a total eclipse in November 13th. Same idea, where the moon will be chugging in front of the sun for people in northeastern Australia, except at that time, the moon will be near the closest point to Earth in its elliptical orbit, and so then it will be big enough to completely cover the sun. That's when you see the stars in the daytime and the pink geysers of nuclear flame coming out of the edge of the sun, and all these strange effects of totality. The sun's atmosphere, its corona, spread out across the sky. As I mentioned before, people weep, animals go crazy. That's solar totality. We're not going to get a pitch black sky today in California. We're not going to have the stars come out. We will instead see something that's almost as strange, which is a ring of sunlight. The media are calling this a ring of fire, you know, like that Johnny Cash song, I fell into a burning ring of fire. That's what we're going to see, a burning ring of fire, except it's going to be the nuclear fire of the sun. The sun doesn't really have fire the way we know it. Much hotter than that, and much more interesting than that. Although, you know, a few thousand years ago, we didn't know what made the sun shine. 100 years ago, we didn't know what made the sun shine. It was Arthur Eddington, if I remember right, in 1920, that first really laid down what the process, the proton-proton cycle that makes the sun shine. All we knew that if the sun were just burning, if the sun were a lump of coal, the size of the sun, it would burn out in about 2,000 years. So that if it started burning when the pyramids were built, the sun would have gone out by the time of the days of Christ. So it couldn't be burning. Something else had to be happening, and that's what people were scratching their heads over for century over century. There was no possible fuel that could keep the sun this hot. And all sorts of crazy ideas came out. I'll mention one of them that again is in that book, the sun's heartbeat. Crazy idea. This is one of my favorites. One, he wasn't even a solar scientist. He actually was a preacher in the 18th century who said that the sun is actually made of ice. Ice. You know why? Because he said in the Bible it says that there was sunlight before there was sun. You just read Genesis. You know, there was grass growing on earth. There was light. God created the day and the night and didn't create the sun until a subsequent day. Therefore, the sun couldn't be the source of light. Therefore, he thought, the sun must merely focus the light from elsewhere in the universe. Well, what focuses light? A giant lens. But it couldn't be glass because that would be too artificial. So he said the sun must be a lens made of ice. And as proof, if the sun were actually the source of our light, well, when you get closer to a fire, doesn't it get hot? Yes. But if you climb a mountain and get closer to the sun, everything feels cooler. So there's the proof. The sun couldn't be the hot object. It must simply be a lens that's focusing the light from elsewhere in the universe. So the point is we had lots of far-out, lunatic ideas about how the sun is shining, what makes it shine, and we might as well, enjoy some of them maybe with a smile on our faces while we watch this eclipse progress.
Hey, Lucie, I just want to ask you, are you able to, is the chat box working for you? Can you monitor it? Do you see any questions popping in on that?
Yeah, let's have a look. I was getting quite carried away watching as the sunspots are slowly being covered up by the moon.
Right, right. If you have any questions in there, I know we're getting tremendous traffic on the Slooh.com homepage right now, and some of you might be experiencing the chat box a little odd. But yeah, I want to see if it's still, if we have any questions we can get out of there. That'd be great. So now we're getting almost to the crescent sun, it looks like, isn't it? It's pretty cool how that's, I'm going to go ahead and pin out this photo from California right now on our Twitter feed for those who are listening. Again, you can pin any of these photos if you like and put them on your own board. So I'm going to do that right now. You'll see it pop up, in fact, on the Twitter bar feed I'm doing.
And while you're doing that, let me point out that the crescent, since you're mentioning the crescent, those of you who are into eclipses, a lunar eclipse has a different shape crescent than a solar eclipse does, because when the moon goes into Earth's shadow, our shadow, when it reaches the moon, is much larger. That is, it has a circular diameter that is twice the size of the moon when it reaches the moon. And so you see the circular moon going to a much larger looking, disappearing against a much larger looking black entity that's eating it up. Not now. In a solar eclipse, both of them are the same size. So we see the black moon intruding on the brilliant sun, but both of these disks are pretty much the same size, and therefore the crescents, the eerie, strange-looking solar crescent that's being produced, has an entirely different shape. And as it gets more and more eaten up, you'll see that it continues to have a very different shape than the moon's strange crescents that unfold during a lunar eclipse.
So we've got some questions being asked about the sun's magnetic field, and I think some of the viewers know that the sun's magnetic field and the South Pole flip with time. So in fact, each solar cycle they flip. So the North Pole the South magnetic pole becomes the North magnetic pole. So roughly every 11 years, which is incredible. The Earth flips its magnetic field, but not in anywhere near a shorter time scale as that.
Yes, our last one was.
How that.
I was going to say our last flip was 780,000 years ago. Was our Earth's last magnetic polarity flip.
So, totally different timescales. And what we've been seeing with the solar satellites at the moment, so in particular a Japanese one called Hinode, they've seen that the North Pole of the Sun has flipped its magnetic polarity, but the South Pole hasn't yet flipped. So it's a slightly unusual time that the Sun has the same magnetic polarity at both poles, and we're waiting for the South Pole to flip completely. We don't know when that's going to happen. We're expecting it should be very soon, but we're watching to see it's a little bit unusually at the moment, which makes it exciting for us.
Right, absolutely. I'm looking at. I got my chat box working again. I'm just looking at some questions as well. So, Bob, what's as we're moving into this next phase? It's almost turning into a crescent sun. Looking, we're about what, 30 minutes away or so from the actual ring of fire.
Yeah, that's about half and half, and this is going to be very strange. You'll notice that the crescent sun it will take shapes again, very different. Not just a lunar eclipse, but there'll be very different shapes that you normally see when the moon is in a crescent every month, either a waxing or a waning crescent. Never looks like this. You'll never see a lunar crescent look like this. So even though this looks like a very fat banana, it doesn't at all look like anything else. Since Lucie was talking about poles flipping, and since we have a lot of people now visiting us, let me mention another aspect of it. Again, the idea, the very paranoid idea that when poles flip on Earth, it can somehow harm us. So let me just quickly say that it only happens on average 3 times every million years. And it's not like the way some people think, that the Earth's poles flip right away. Then you could be having a cappuccino or something while the poles are flipping. The process of changing around takes at least 10,000 years and can take as long as 100,000 years. So longer than an ice age even. So when a magnetic polarity shift happens on the Earth, this is something that takes a long time. It's not harmful. There's no mass extinctions during that event. And we found from the fossil record that there's not even a greater period of evolution. So it means that this can't be something that's particularly bad for the Earth. And there's recent evidence that shows that a lot of magnetism remains as our protective shield even during that process of poles flipping. So the sun's poles flip, the Earth poles flip. We have flipping poles all over the place, and nothing bad. I mean, this has been at 780,000 years since the last time the Earth's poles have flipped, and these have been good times for us mammals. So we could clink our glasses and salute this the magnetic polarity. It's been good to us.
So if you're just joining us, we have 3 feeds coming out of the United States. We have one in Red Bluff, California, from a mobile installation of Sloohs. We're also partnered with the University of New Mexico, who we're really thankful for them participating. They're in the New Mexico feed, and they will. We're looking forward to doing more events with them as well, including the Transit of Venus. And also, we had a feed out of the Grand Canyon, but unfortunately, according to the feed partner down there, he's having a big problem with bandwidth, and he's unable to, at this point in time. So we had to he was unable to get his feed going, so we had to turn off his feed, basically. That's why his feed is offline right now. So we're moving on to the next. We're getting closer to the Ring of Fire. I'm getting excited, I'm sure everyone else is. Bob, what else can you tell us, you guys, about what we're going to see when this Ring of Fire? Are we going to see what can we expect?
Well, it's not going to be it's not going to be like totality. It won't be dark. The stars won't come out. We won't see solar prominences. We won't see the sun's atmosphere. We'll see just what you said. We'll see some sun surrounding the moon. And because it's an unusual event, something that you just don't see every day, it's more than science, because the science, this doesn't really give us a lot of science the way totality does. It's more like something, I'm trying to be more technical or scientific, but I can't be. It's cool. It's just a cool thing. That's what we're waiting for now.
Right. So I know I've been pinning out photos. You can see down in our Twitter box on the homepage that I've been basically tweeting out the recent snaps from the feeds. You can do that yourself by just clicking the pin it button. And as I mentioned before, if you want to follow us on future events to get notifications, make sure you like us, follow us on Twitter, or circle us in your G+ account, because then you'll get updated on the next event and what we're doing live, and we share other information on a constant basis. We do have other events counting down off our homepage, as you can see. In fact, we got one this Friday that may be of interest, and we're going to have Apollo engineers and producer Duncan Kopp. You can see some of his work in the lowest YouTube box below on the homepage, and he is going to be joining us, as he does frequently, about that particular event of JFK's anniversary speech about going to the moon. So we're excited about that as well. You guys, we're about an hour and 5 minutes into this event, so we got probably another hour or so, 20 minutes before this event is in completion. And we are trying to monitor the chat, but I know the chat box is getting overwhelmed. You may find that it's sticking a little bit, so we'll try to get to your questions as soon as we can as we're looking at these things. So, Dr. Green, could you give us a little? I think one of the things we have a problem about with the sun is understanding how big it is. I mean, when a solar flare takes place on the sun, are those the size of how big are those? Are those the size of the Earth, or what's the scale of that? Did you hear me? Dr. Green, did you hear me?
It's great. It's Great Britain. It's their, you know, they're just starting to get interior toilets and central heating there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I know, did you hear that question, or are you just cutting out a little too much right now?
It's bandwidth problems, I think, that they have there.
Yeah, it dropped out. Her line dropped, so she'll be back in a second. So, Bob, maybe you could pick up that question.
Actually, I can hear you again now.
Oh, you're back. You're back. You're back. Your computer caught up. All right.
Yeah, so...
Yeah,
right. It's very slow here in Britain. It's late at night. So I think you were asking me about solar flares and...
right, I was trying to get some...
how big they are. So
right.
These big explosions that happen... in sunspots.
Oh, Lucie, you might have to come back in. You're really cutting out. You've turned into a robotic person now.
That's right. I think we can actually tell, because we have a filter, we can tell who what's happening. We're filtering out alien life forms here, and we're catching a little bit of this feedback from other galaxies right now. So I think we're losing you a little bit. You're just freezing up, so you might have to go out and come back in again, Lucie.
So, Bob, maybe you could pick up when she gets back. Give everyone some perspective of how big these flares are that occur on the sun, and we always hear about them when they do occur, how they could cause disruptions on Earth. So maybe you can fill us in a little bit about that while she comes back. Okay,
we were talking earlier about how starting in 1610, when Galileo and Rudolf Scheiner, who was actually a priest, were battling and observing sunsets, sunspots, and ranking each other out on in all the media of the time as to who discovered what on the sun first. And from that point on, the whole key thing was, where are these things located? What are they doing to us? And remember, the sun is 865,000 miles across. That is, if the sun were hollow, and you could unscrew the top like a mayonnaise jar and just pour Earths inside, it would take over a million Earths to fit inside the sun. So it's huge, and those sunspots that are so beloved to Lucie Green are the ones that we're seeing today are larger than our planet Earth, and the storms, the flares, the particles that escape from the sun, it really sends shotgun blasts of broken bits of atoms. That's how we should think of the material that is rushing from the sun toward us. Think of it as the stuff that's in atoms, protons and electrons that are being shot our way, typically at 500 or 600 or 700 kilometers per second. We're talking about 300 or 400 or 500 miles per second. And if there's enough of it, and it's fast enough, and more importantly, if its own magnetism is the reverse of the direction of our magnetic field, then it transfers its power to Earth, and that slithers down eerily like little rats or roaches running down our magnetic field lines, down into especially around the poles, lights up the sky as they roar, and if it's powerful enough, knocks out our equipment, can damage satellites, can make some satellites useless. It's actually destroyed some of our Earth satellites. On March 13th, 1989, one such enormous CME, as we call them, from the sun, not only made all the garage doors in North America go up and down all night long. The garage doors just kept going up and down, but threw 1/4 of Canada's population into complete blackness. And there are some disquieting reports that a really major solar storm, such as the kind we got in the middle of the 19th century, and then again in 1921, this could destroy the American electrical grid to the tune of $2 trillion worth of repair. And we're talking about that damage caused by the sun alone. So these storms, Pat, are no small potatoes. Some of them are small potatoes, but they occasionally are powerful enough to really cause us harm, and also even make flights divert. so that there's too much radiation and there's loss of communication between the pilots in polar flights, and they just can't communicate with air traffic control, so they have to change their routing. So the sun isn't just way out there, 93 million miles away. It reaches down and it affects us personally.
What is
I think I managed to get my connection back again. I was going to add that I was in the US a couple of weeks ago for a workshop on exactly this kind of science, so looking at how the sun affects the Earth. We call it space weather. And in the US there's a lot of people focusing on this, and in Britain we've now starting to want to forecast this space weather. So we're learning a lot from the US and from the organisation called NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, to help us get our space weather prediction together.
Right, right. So is it possible you mentioned about forecasting. I mean, is it something that's achievable in the near future, or is it going to take a while for us to really be able to forecast when a solar flare is going to take place?
It's a good question. So scientists are making space weather forecasts right now, but in the meeting they were talking about that our status of forecasting space weather is equivalent to where we were with forecasting Earth weather in the 1970s. So we're a little bit behind, but that's because it's a new thing that we're doing, and also it relies on having the right kind of images and data taken of the sun. So, you know, we used to have very few, satellite data. When that came online for weather forecasting, absolutely revolutionized it. And now we're going through that process of using data studied from looking at the sun to use that for forecasting what happens at the Earth. And then also we're getting better in understanding the science behind it as well. But there's so many things to study. And you talked about solar flares, and actually when a solar flare happens, that the radiation gets to us in 8 minutes, and by the time we see it, it's already here. So by radiation I mean light, X-rays, ultraviolet light. So forecasting flares is very difficult. But in terms of these eruptions that the sun produces, they could take maybe 1 day, 3 to 3 days to get to us. So in that case, we can actually just wait for the sun to produce an eruption and then work out how long it's going to take to get to us and what the effects might be. So it's a little bit better because we can wait for the sun to do its thing and then try and work out what's going to happen.
Wow, it's well. I'm going to send out another photo from the California feed on the Twitter just to kind of let people know. I just pinned a photo. I'm going to send it out right now. I'm calling it the Ring of Fire coming soon. So we're going to send this out right now.
We should have gotten that Johnny Cash record and played it in the background. You know that, right?
I know. It would have been pretty funny, huh? Yeah, it's a good idea. Well, so here we are. We're getting close here, getting to the Ring of Fire from Slooh. We have 2 feeds tonight, one from California, one from New Mexico. Unfortunately, our Grand Canyon feed is not operating presently, but we will hope he could get back online. We never know. We'll have to check. So we're right here getting close to the Ring of Fire. You can see it as the moon is now going close in front of the sun there. Bob, what else can you tell us about the sun?
Well, there's so much. We talked about how the sun affects us and skin cancer and how it could save our lives, not just take our lives, thanks to the vitamin D it's producing. We talked about these storms on the sun and how it can damage and even destroy our entire electrical grid in the United States, and does strange things, including producing the beautiful aurora borealis. Dr. Lucie Green spoke a little bit early on about the sunspot cycle and how we're expecting solar max in next year, maybe in May of next year. We never know exactly for sure. And I do want to mention, this is Dr. Lucie Green, who's a solar expert currently in Britain. I'm Bob Berman with Astronomy Magazine. I'm here in the rural eastern United States. And Pat Paolucci, who gives himself very little credit and who's the juggler behind the scenes who keeps everything happening. He's in California right now, and I know we've got Matt Marula, one of our feeds, one of our solar telescopes, and Matt Francis on another, who, Matt Francis must be pulling out his hair because he's so dedicated. He dragged the telescope, he set up the Grand Canyon, he went there weeks ahead of time to find the perfect spot. And the problem, of course, is internet access. You can get a mule at the Grand Canyon. No problem getting a mule, but try getting high-speed internet access for the feed. So let's see if he can succeed in doing that.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's one of the things we talked about a little earlier today about the difficulty of putting on these events. It's not just linking your telescope up and bring it into the web. You know, it's getting easier and easier to do that, but it's being able to handle all the traffic, the simultaneous traffic, and putting together a broadcast and allowing people to come in from all over the world. And we have a worldwide audience tonight watching this, and it's pretty fascinating that Slooh is able to do this. And one of the cool things about what we're doing tonight is we're partnering with a third-party facility, the University of New Mexico, who actually contacted us a couple weeks ago about doing this. And, you know, we have the ability to do this. It's not something we haven't done before, but we really want to reach out to partners like the universities around the globe and anyone who's got private equipment or any facility or groups that have and want to participate in Slooh's programming. We'd love to have you. Please send me an email at patrick@slooh.com, or you can go to our homepage and the About section. There's a biz dev email there as well. You know, send us an email and we could work on setting you guys up, because we do a lot of events that are free to the public. We do it as goodwill to get people interested about Slooh and what we do. And the more feeds that we have, the better the programming is, for obvious reasons. So please don't hesitate to contact us, and it'd be great. So guys,
Pat,
we're getting close to
Yes, I was just going to say, let's sum up what's going on for people who may just be joining us now, the viewers. We are seeing the moon now more than 3/4 covering up the sun. The moon is moving through space at 2,237 miles an hour. That's fast. That's supersonic. It's several times the speed of sound. It's casting its shadow on a very narrow ribbon of highway, and one of our feeds provides you with a map showing from where the moon will be centrally seen to cover the sun. We're not using the Slooh observatories tonight. We have observatories on several continents, but remote feeds in order to be positioned where this event is happening. There's the sun in the background, 400 times farther away than the moon. But by an amazing coincidence, the greatest coincidence in all of nature, the sun also happens to be 400 times larger. 400 times farther, it's 400 times larger. And so as a result, the two bodies, the only two bodies in our sky that are circles, that are disks, the sun and the moon, because after all, everything else are dots. Stars look like dots, and to the naked eye, planets look like dots. We only have two disks, the sun and the moon, and they both appear the same size. Except today. Today the moon happens to be about as far away from Earth as it can be in its orbit, which is not circular but elliptical, and because of that, we're going to see that fact too, coming up in just a matter of minutes. The moon, as it centrally covers the sun, will be too small to fully cover it. So even though our telescope is positioned where they will be in a perfect straight line that has the famous word syzygy, everybody says, oh, that's a great Scrabble word, S-Y, Z-Y, G-Y, 3 Y's and 1 Z. Not a good Scrabble word because there's only 2 Y's in Scrabble. You'd have to use one of your blanks to make it. But syzygy is a perfect straight line of 3 celestial bodies, Earth, Moon, and Sun, forming a perfect straight line in space, and we're minutes away from that straight line happening. And when that happens, we should see the famous Ring of Fire.
Oh, that's going to be cool. That's going to be cool. So, Dr. Green, I know we talked about this a little earlier, and I'm trying to make sure I don't repeat myself, but are you going to go down to the Total Solar Eclipse in November, you said? Are you trying to, or are you not sure you can pull it off because you already went to Australia earlier this year? Is that what the situation was?
I'm hoping that I'll be able to go, but yeah, you're right. The best place I think to see it is going to be in Australia, in the northern part of Australia. And I made a trip there to work with some people at Monash University only a few weeks ago, so I'm not sure that I'll be able to manage it, but if I can, I'll go, because seeing a total solar eclipse is an amazing experience, and I've only managed to see one once, and I'm desperate to see another one.
Where
But
were
if I
you
don't
for
go,
that one? Lucie,
so,
where were you for that previous eclipse? Where were you located?
So I was located on the Pacific, not too far from the island of Iwo Jima. So we'd sailed from China, and then we'd made a stop into Japan, and then we sailed on. And so we were lucky enough to chase the path of totality and see the longest eclipse of the century. So it was on a boat, which was fantastic, calm waters. We had a really good view to the horizon. But it was a bit of a shame not to be around animals, because I had heard stories about birds going to roost and animals all going very quiet, and this hush that fell over the land. And of course, being on the ocean, there was no noise anyway, so I missed out on that experience. So I'm very keen to see another total eclipse and see it from the ground and to see how the animals respond.
You know, and in answer to that, when will we have a total eclipse in the United States? The answer is after a eclipse drought that will last 38 years, Pat. Finally, the United States will have a coast-to-coast totality on August 21st, 2017, when that ribbon of totality, just like we have a little map of the ribbon of where the annular eclipse will be seen, we'll have a narrow 100-mile wide ribbon from the Pacific Northwest, that is Oregon, over Jackson, Wyoming, that is just south of the Grand Tetons, over southern Illinois, over Nashville, and then the eclipse shadow will vanish into the Atlantic after passing over the Carolinas. So mark that on your calendar, August 21st, 2017. That will be the first American totality in 38 years. After that, you'll only have to wait 7 more, because then we'll have a very odd totality on April 8th of 2024. And at that point, I memorize all these because I love total eclipses. I've been to 6. That's why we're trying to drag Lucie to this next one in Australia, coming up this November 13th. At that time, that eclipse in 2024, the shadow will go northeast from Texas over Cleveland, over Buffalo. Hey, there's a reason to go to Buffalo and Cleveland, and over Rochester, and then finally Burlington, Vermont, quite a beautiful city. And so that will be in 2024. And the longest eclipse in U.S. history, which is 1 Saros after the one that Lucie got to see in 2009. It's actually, eclipses repeat after 18 years and either 10 or 11 1/3 days. 1 Saros later, it will happen 1/3 of the world around, and then another Saros later, the United States will have its longest totality on August 12th of 2045. But hey, let's get back to the present, because look at this. We're getting close to the Ring of Fire, aren't we?
Progressing really well. It looks fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, we're getting really close, and it's fabulous. So Bob, you know, just so everyone knows, Bob and we're already setting up to cover the total solar eclipse in November, so it should be fun as well. And Bob's trying to drag me down there, and I'm hoping to go. I think that would be awesome. We do a live broadcast right from there. That'd be pretty cool.
Oh yeah, we're going to do that. Now, remember, before we were talking, this is Pat, here's Lucie, the 3 of us were talking about the crescents, that the moon covering the sun produces a crescent. But look at that fat crescent that we had before. The looked like a fat banana that was visible earlier on. But look at the crescent now. They're both called a crescent, but it doesn't resemble it. Before, you had a crescent that's unlike anything you'd ever see in the actual sky from the moon, and here's another crescent that you'd never actually see. Now, one reason you'd never see this, my friends, is that the actual crescent moon is never more than a half of a crescent. And here, if you drew a line from one of those tips or horns of this crescent clear to the middle, and then out to the other side, you'd see that this goes around more than half, doesn't it? The tips, those pointy tips, extend more than just a semicircle. It goes more than halfway around. And what's going to happen just in minutes now, because the action is going to really speed up now, we're going to watch those tips creep around more and more and more than just a half circle until they extend fully around. And we're going to watch this happen live right now.
Yeah. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah, in fact, look at that. You can see it. You can already see just from the from 1 minute ago how much further those little tips of the the crescent are extending around. This is really creepy stuff. This is fantastic stuff.
I'm gonna send out another tweet about it as we talk here. And again, guys, as you're watching this, please consider membership on Slooh. It really helps fund this type of programming. We do this frequently. These aren't just one-off events. We do all kind of stuff. We go look at Jupiter. We take a look at Saturn. We look at comets, asteroids, whatever's happening out there in space. Slooh will cover it, but obviously it takes membership for us to help fund it. If you can't afford the membership, and just before I jump off membership, again, when you become a member, you actually can control our observatories around the world, snap your own pics, and do some fun stuff like that. But if you can't afford to become a member, please consider making a contribution to Slooh. It really helps us, and it gets great people like Lucie and Bob involved and others that we work with, and we really appreciate it. So please consider it as we get into the Ring of Fire here. I'm going to go ahead and tweet out, guys, so have at it while I'm typing here.
And while we're watching this, again, I want to thank, of course, I'm thanking Lucie Green. I'm Bob Berman. That's Pat Paolucci. But mainly, I'd like to thank the Slooh tech people who are out there in the field right now bringing us these images and who have traveled and set up and practiced ahead of time to bring us this. Look at this now from California. I hope you're all looking at that California thing. Look at this crescent. I don't even think you'd call this a crescent anymore. Hey, Pat, do you see this? Now those points, those horns of the crescent are extending around as if they wish to touch each other. Do you think they're going to succeed?
I think they will, huh? What do you think?
They're nearly there.
Oh, there they are. See, I got it. I'm going to get this. I'm pinning like crazy because these things happen.
There it is. Hey, applause. There's the Ring of Fire. We got it.
Ring of Fire. Here we go.
There it is.
Hey.
And because this only lasts a brief period of time, notice how much smaller that moon is from the background sun right now. Now, in the event coming up this November 13th in Australia, the moon is actually going to appear a little bigger than the sun. It has to in order to fully cover it. The moon is going to be slightly larger seeming than the sun. So what this is illustrating is the difference in the moon's changing distance. It's also telling us how kind of silly were some of those media events 2 weeks ago when they were talking about the huge moon, the biggest moon, look out, it's going to be huge in the sky. The difference in the moon's apparent size is pretty much what you see here. The difference in size between the black moon and that background sun is very close to the difference in the moon's size from its closest point to Earth, called perigee, and to its farthest point in its orbit. You're seeing the difference actually very clear, because at its closest, it's only ever so slightly larger than that background sun. Hey, you know what? That ring looks almost now symmetrical and even, doesn't it? At the moment it does. That will be the precise moment of mid-eclipse as seen from California. When the thickness of that solar ring is even throughout the sun, well, that will tell us whether our tech people manage to position themselves on the center line of annularity, or whether they're a little bit off from the center line, because you could be anywhere in that band of that map that we have for you. If you just keep clicking there, you'll see the line on Earth, the ribbon of highway on which you'd see the annular eclipse. You'd see this annularity anywhere within that line, but you'd see it being perfectly symmetrical only in the center of that line. And I'm not even sure where he's located, so we're going to find out where his car broke down in just a couple of moments.
So we're actually, you know, it's interesting too, if you look at the New Mexico feed, they got a different perspective of it, which is pretty cool too. It's a little bit behind. It's more of a close-up view, but it's a different look of it. So I'm just pinning right now like crazy to show people what's going on out there that are maybe don't know this is happening yet. So Dr. Green, I have to ask you really quick. What time is it there in the UK right now?
Oh, it's 2:30 in the morning here. You know, it's pretty late. But I was just sat here thinking, I can't believe I've seen the annular eclipse twice now in one evening.
Yeah,
We
exactly.
saw it from Japan. Now I'm seeing it from the States. So that's the power of looking at these events online.
And
Yeah,
people,
it's amazing.
and people who are wondering what's going on, the moon is casting its shadow on the Earth. The moon is moving, the Earth is rotating, and the combination of the two is producing a brush stroke, like a calligraphy black brush stroke across the face of the Earth. Started in Japan, moved across the Pacific Ocean, and is now covering California and moving to places east of that. So that's what Slooh has done, has brought you feeds from different parts of the world. And so when you see different stages of the eclipse simultaneously, that's not because a feed is being delayed or anything like that. This is very different from a lunar eclipse. Now, when the moon goes into Earth's shadow, everyone on Earth sees the same thing at the same moment. No matter where on the Earth you're located, you would see the moment of total lunar eclipse. Everybody together. You could pick up the phone and talk to somebody in China or Saudi Arabia, and they'd all say, yes, I see it. Totality just began this moment. That's not the case with a solar eclipse, because the moon's shadow is moving to different locations, and so it happens at different times.
Yes. It's been wonderful to chase the eclipse around the world.
Yes, that's right. Yes, yes.
And you know,
very stressful. Very stressful, might add.
yeah, you've done a great job. It's been amazing. We have one of our solar satellites that's able to see this this eclipse as well. One that's called the Solar Dynamics Observatory was mentioned earlier by Duncan, but that's in a very high orbit, so that doesn't get to see this eclipse. But we have one that's in a lower orbit, about 600 kilometers above the Earth, and it's the Hinode satellite. And so whilst we've been chasing the eclipse around the world with the Slooh feed, our satellite in space has seen the eclipse 4 times, because it's done 4 laps of the Earth, and each time it's come around, it's seen the eclipse again, and then it's come around and seen the eclipse again. So it is interesting to think what you see from these different perspectives, underneath the shadow here on the Earth, and then underneath the shadow from our satellite in space as well. Yes. We're getting a really good
So now we're getting out of the ring of fire, it looks like, huh? Is that what's going on right now, Bob?
In California, the annularity is over, and people there are seeing now a deep partial eclipse that's uncovering itself. However, the opposite is happening for people who are in New Mexico. They're just getting ready for the annular part of the eclipse. So again, for people who are joining us late, it's amazing that just being located a few hundred miles from somebody else on our round planet is enough to change your perspective. You're seeing the moon from different angles. You know, it's that old thing that some of us did in classroom, that if you hold up your finger in front of your eye and then blink one eye and then the other. If you've never done this, please try this, because nobody's looking right now. And you'll see that the finger seems to jump relative to the background wall. If you use one eye and then the other, watch that finger jump back and forth, because each eye is seeing it from a different angle. Well, just like that, exactly like that, people in New Mexico are one eye, and people in California are the other eye, looking at the nearby moon, comparing it to the more distant sun, and so they're seeing it in a different position. The eclipse is past its prime in California, and it's only just reaching annularity now, spectacularly so from New Mexico.
Yeah, while we're talking about New Mexico, I wanted to thank some of the partners down there for providing the feed, and I'm working on it right now. I want to reach out to several of them that we had that have worked with us to get this feed going. Pete Zimmer, who's working the feed right now, I believe. We appreciate his efforts. I also wanted to thank Robert from the hobby organization down there, that he had called and inquired about providing the feed and bringing it on Slooh. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to working with them in the near future on some other events that we're currently putting together. So it's exciting stuff for us to work with it. Also, Richard Rand, who's I guess in the physics department at the University of New Mexico. I want to thank him as well for participating and helping us put this all together. So we're excited about it. and you can see that the feed quality is pretty cool.
And it's annularity. It's the moment of annularity from New Mexico.
There it is. There it is. Let me get it out. I'm pinning it. I'm pinning it.
And on this scale, Pat, on this scale, because the image is so large, look on the edge of the moon, and you'll actually see the profile of mountains and valleys on the moon against the sun, completely around, with the sun forming this beautiful wedding ring in the background. You'll see the, even though the mountains on the moon are small compared to its 2,000-mile diameter, you can clearly see the silhouettes and profiles of mountains on the moon against the sun's edge. You see that? Perhaps the largest ones are on the lower left and on the upper right.
So, Dr. Green, before you get off, do you want any last thoughts as we're going through looking at the Ring of Fire that we currently got on the New Mexico feed? That's pretty fascinating. It fits perfectly in our little reticle.
Yeah.
Perfect, perfect.
It does. It's really nice to have that zoomed-in view as well. So, like Bob was saying, so you can see the mountains. But it's been an amazing evening to watch this annular eclipse twice now. So I think for me it's a great time to hang up my computer and go to bed in Britain. But it's been a really fun night. I look forward to the next event.
Yeah, Dr. Green, we appreciate you joining us, and again, I'll be in touch regarding the transit. We'd love to have you. Hopefully, you can get access to some bandwidth, because it would be fun to have you back to talk more about what's going on with that particular event with Venus actually crosses the sun, which is pretty. That's like the last one for 100+ years. So that's a big one as well.
Very significant event. This is not to be missed.
Yes, Lucie, you're a real hoot. You've got to join us for that.
Yeah, I look forward to it.
Okay.
All right, Dr.
See you guys
Green,
soon.
take care. All right,
You
take
too.
care.
Bye.
Bye-bye. So that was Dr. Green out of the UK, and you can see, actually put a little bio for her in the box below our feed right here, so you guys can click on that and learn more about Dr. Green's work and what she does. So Bob, here we go. We're wrapping up the show. We got another, 45 minutes, 40 minutes. We'll stay on as this progresses through annularity for both feeds. This has been fascinating. I mean, I have to say, this has been really cool. Both of these feeds have been stellar. It's too bad Matt Francis. It would have been fun to have him join.
Oh, he's such a great guy. He's going to be tearing his hair out because he put so much effort into that Grand Canyon feed.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'm gonna invite the Slooh members in to the hangout. Do you mind? Should we try it?
No, that would be fine. That would be fine.
Yes, Slooh members. We gotten so wrapped up in this. I'm gonna invite you guys in right now to join the hangout. So, that's part of being a member of Slooh. If you are a member, you have the opportunity to join our hangouts that we produce. This one was one of those that it's a little bit different, but we just invited. So we'll see who can come in. If you're a member of Slooh, you just actually just kind of say you want to be a part of the hangout crew, and you can come in and join our broadcasts and talk to the experts directly. That's part of being the benefit of being a member. And while we're talking about membership, please consider it. It does help fund the live broadcast shows that we produce. As you can see on the homepage, we have a lot of other stuff happening in the coming weeks, including a cool moon event happening this week on Friday, as well as there's a Moon, Saturn, Spica Star event on May 31st, and of course the biggie is the transit of Venus. That's going to be a fascinating show for 6+ hours, but we do a lot of stuff. So again, consider membership. You get to control scopes, do other things, interact with space enthusiasts worldwide, snap your own pics, personalize them, do a lot of fun stuff, as well as you help support the programming. And we do have a yearly special rolling right now. If you click on that membership, you'll see it pop up. Get a free 200 minutes to hand this friend that they have their own account. And or if you can't afford a membership, or is that something you don't want to do, please consider a contribution of some form to help with the programming. We really appreciate it. So Bob, here we go. I'm looking at the New Mexico feed. What are you looking at right now?
I'm seeing the New Mexico feed because the annularity has just ended there. You can see it's now a partial eclipse with those horns or tips of the sun now shrinking, going in the opposite direction, and the sun from California is now uncovering the sunspots. Of course, we're going to see everything now in reverse. In New Mexico, we're still seeing it as a just past annularity. Great event. We really uncovered a wonderful event. Of course, I want to also thank the kind reviewers and the publisher Little Brown for The Sun's Heartbeat and all the great science things about the sun, the most amazing star, and amazing science about it. Available in paperback shortly. The Sun's Heartbeat. Fantastic.
Yes, Bob. I'm sorry to interrupt you on your promos. Just kidding. You know, to prove that Slooh is worldwide, we actually have a member, Keith. He was actually from New Zealand. Keith, how you doing today?
Hi. I'm not. Something's happened here. I seem to have lost the. I got the wrong page up. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, thank you very much for that. It was actually saw it 3 times.
Did
Japan. Yeah, Japan, California, and New Mexico. The New Mexico one was right on target. That was a perfect ring.
Yes, yes, it was. They were obviously positioned precisely on the center line. It was a perfect ring.
So what time? You know, I always like to get the timing down. We were just in the UK, and Lucie was like 2 in the morning. Where is it? What time is it now in New Zealand? And what day is it? Is it
1:42 p.m. on Monday, just Monday afternoon?
Yeah,
so obviously Lucie's on daylight time or something.
Right. Well, she's ahead of us. I mean, yeah, you guys are all ahead of us. It's pretty funny, all the different time zones we got to deal with. And that's one of the most confusing things that I had to deal with was this time zones. You know, how do you get everyone coordinated and but that's a different story. So Bob, yeah. So what do we got going now, Bob? I'm right in the middle of pinning something, so I want to get this out. Why don't you talk to us more about what you think about this? I mean, this event actually was pretty fascinating, I have to say. I know you think from an astronomer's point of view, it's nothing scientific, or it's not something that's might be of interest to someone of your caliber. But for us, people in the general public, this stuff is just awesome to see.
No, it was pretty darn cool. I have to say that was pretty darn cool. But if you come with us to Australia, I know Slooh, we will be covering the total eclipse this November 13th from Australia. And if you come with us, Pat, you will then, of course, see the difference between the totality and a mere annularity. But having said that, this ring of fire was pretty darn cool, wasn't it? I mean, I thought it was pretty nice. What we didn't, it's more like a what we didn't have rather than a positive. The positive is we got a deep solar eclipse. We saw the dynamic motion of the moon. We were able to track it across the world. The Slooh facilities, everything worked fantastically. And sure enough, on the center line, we saw that ring. It was great. Great event. What we didn't get is our fires coming off the edge of the sun. We didn't get darkness at noon. We didn't see the atmosphere of the sun, the corona of the sun streaming off into space, and the other effects that totality alone brings. Nonetheless, to see the moon in its far point of its orbit, to see it looking so small, at lunar apogee, the precise mirror image of where it was 2 weeks ago when we had the largest moon not only of this year, but also next year won't even have a moon larger. And now we were able to see the moon at its farthest point. I think that was very, very interesting. A lot of people think the moon circles the Earth. Using the word circle around us would suggest that it stays the same distance. But we saw that, no, it doesn't. Here was the moon looking as small as it ever does, and therefore leaving this beautiful ring or annulus of sunlight surrounding us.
Hey, Keith, you got a TV on back in your background or something?
Yeah, we have.
Yes, that has to be turned off.
Oh, can you turn that down a bit, Jackie? Getting a little bit of feedback from the speakers. I was wondering if that was going to be a problem. I haven't tried this setup before. Laptop upstairs in the lounge. But yeah, I hope to see you guys in we're actually trying to catch the eclipse at Australia this November. Maybe we might be able to see you guys there.
Yes, I hope so. We're still working on getting Pat to come. I'll certainly be there. Matt Francis, one of our dear, beloved Slooh people the one who could not get enough bandwidth to give us the Grand Canyon feed tonight. He will be there with his solar equipment, so we will be broadcasting live from there. But we're trying to get Pat and maybe Pat's wife to come. Bring the kids. You know,
Excellent.
I mean,
Yep.
this is a you know, once in a lifetime event. This total eclipse coming up.
Although we're considering maybe having a crack at the 2017 eclipse if possible,
Yeah,
and the one in the States.
Yes, of course. Yes, we've almost forgotten what they're like here in the States. 38
What?
years at that point. It'll be 38 years.
The wife just says the first she's heard about it, but we did mention it at the Selenova meeting the other day when Matthew and Marie said they wanted to see an eclipse. So why don't we go to 2017 in the States? Why don't we all go have a crack at it?
So Pat, what do you think? Are you going to come this November? Are we going to see this totality together, or will you just be narrating from California? We don't hear Pat at all. We don't hear Pat anymore. I think we may have even lost Pat's audio for the moment. Pat, are you still with us? Well, in any case, let's continue with what we're seeing in California. The moon now is chugging onward.
Bob, you hear me now?
Yes, now we hear you.
Oh, I apologize. You know, I did that. I screwed up. I accidentally pushed the mute button on my end here. What I was saying is I'm going to change the contribution now. It's to get Pat and his wife a free trip to Australia. That's how we're going to do it now. So if you donate money to Slooh, it's paying for my trip to Australia. That'll be good. So what do we got going? Go ahead, Bob. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, that's all right. Of course, annularity is over. The moon continues to move eastward against the background constellations, and as it does so, the shadow of the moon is moving eastward. The problem is that the sun is setting for locations as you go eastward, and this is why the path of annularity, if you click on those triangles until you see it, it doesn't keep going across the middle of the United States or to even to where I am. At this moment, the sun has long since set here, and so this is why it's an event that's only seen from Japan across the Pacific Ocean and to the westernmost United States. Very cool to see that black cameo of a new moon. We were seeing the moment of new moon just a little while ago, a few minutes ago, and when you next see the little crescent moon, perhaps if you have a good clear horizon, you might glimpse it tomorrow night. Otherwise, certainly the night after that, in the evening, right after sunset. And when you see that moon, remember, you were there at the moment the moon was new and crossed over from the morning to the evening sky. You'll see it now in the days to come. The moon will be a crescent in the evening sky. So usually when it crosses over, it misses the sun. Not this time around. It was an absolutely clean central hit, crossing the face of the sun. It was just too far away in its orbit to completely cover it, leaving that beautiful ring of fire, that ring of sunlight that we saw around it.
Yeah, it was fascinating stuff, Bob. I really appreciate your insight on it. You know, it's one of those things when we produce these events, you know, it's so much stress to put them together, but then to finally enjoy it and watch it come unfold on live right in front of you. You know, I really do want to do a shout out to the Slooh team, which includes Matt Marula, Paul Cox, Thomas O'Toole, Bob Berman, of course, all you guys, all of us participating in this and making this work. Also Google for helping us as they do with the back end and all the things that, you know, it takes to make these things work. It's not easy, that's for sure. To do live astronomy is, as Bob can attest to, is extremely difficult. Anyone who's got a telescope knows all the challenges of using it, and Slooh does it. And we make it look so easy that I think sometimes people forget, oh, this is not a big deal. But what we do is, you know, if you saw what it takes to make it happen, it's pretty impressive. So thanks everyone for making it go well tonight.
Oh, good, Pat. It's just a pleasure, and thank you too, of course, for all your fabulous work in making this happen. I know you've been juggling all sorts of. You know, all sorts of cool stuff, and I just sent you an email, in fact, to tell you about this the rest of this event, or this upcoming event. And I want to remind viewers that An event that nobody will ever see again. Nobody alive will see the next transit of Venus as it crosses the face of the sun. This is it. And we will be presenting it live from multiple feeds. We're going to have feeds in Hawaii and on the East Coast and everywhere in the world that it's visible from. We're going to blanket so many telescopes on this that it will be almost impossible to be clouded out. So the planet Venus crossing the face of the sun.
Right. It's going to be fascinating stuff. So, Bob, we're winding down the show right now. We got about 30-plus minutes left at max. Do you have any thoughts? One thing I've been saying all night, but if you just joined us, make sure you follow us on our Twitter account or like us on Facebook or circle us on G+, because we can keep you updated on events and when they're happening, so you can know when to come to Slooh. And also, you can just come to the homepage periodically to get you can see the countdown to the next events. And if you have, this is also available on your mobile devices. If you have an iPad or an iPhone or an Android device, you should be seeing these feeds right now, and in some cases, you probably are getting audio as well. So we're always out rolling out new features with the technology, and you can watch these things happen on various devices. Anyway, well, I'm looking at the chat room here. Bob, I'm going to look at the chat room while we're looking at this to see. Someone was asking, could they see the transit of Venus in Georgia?
Yes, the answer is yes. You'll be able to see. You'll be able to see the final roughly hour and a half of it before the sun sets from Georgia. Definitely. Yeah.
So people. In fact, you'll see it's a 3-hour. I think the event that takes place over the United States is about 3 hours long, right before the sun sets, and then it goes on for the. Okay.
Yes.
And then it picks over in Europe.
Exactly, depending upon where in the United States you are. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Cool. It's very, very interesting. So what? I'm looking at the chat room right now. Keith, do you have any more questions before you have to go?
No, not at the moment. Thank you very much. It was a very interesting show, and thank you very much for setting it up in the first place. And I guess we'll see you guys again for the transit.
Yes, we look forward
Keith.
to it.
I thank you for coming on, Keith. I appreciate it. Take care.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye. So, Bob, here we go. I'm looking at, it's funny when you look at the chat boxes. The chat box was definitely getting hit pretty hard tonight, as you might imagine. But there's people all over the place, just great thank yous and such, and that's what we try to do is, produce events that are of interest to people, and we're really excited that they liked the show tonight. That's great. So what, coming up next, what are you, as we wind down the show, we've been on now for I've been on for like 4.5 hours. My mind is scrambled, man. I'm like trying to remember what I've already talked about. We got about 36 minutes in the official show, and I'm going to continue to pin out. I'm not doing right now. Bob, is there anything else, any fascinating stories that you wrote in your book, The Sun's Heartbeat, you'd like to talk about that might be of interest to the public?
Well, knowing that this event is going on for so long, and for example, in the transit, when we have 6 hours of talking, we're going to have solar experts on, and that's going to be great. We're going to be watching Venus, but there's so much happening with the sun, so many different aspects of it, not just the magnetic field and how it can affect us and how it can knock out our power, the invisible particles that are penetrating our bodies all the time, the health aspects. We were talking about vitamin D before, and how more and more researchers are thinking that we should be getting far more sunlight than we're getting for our own health, and that it has a cancer protective effect. So it's exactly the opposite of what people are fearing. People are avoiding the sun because they don't want to get cancer. In fact, as long as you don't burn, if you get lots of sunlight and don't burn, you'll be doing yourself a cancer protective thing by getting more sunlight, especially letting kids get that. Kids are now in school during the day, they're home after school, they have lots of sunscreen splashed onto their bodies when they go out, and hats on because of parents understandably afraid of skin cancer. No, let these kids get sunlight. Just don't let them burn, but let them get more sunlight, because The sun is our friend, so that's another important aspect. We'll speak about that more during the transit and other events, and also how it may be helping affect our climate. You know, the Earth's climate is changing, and the sun has a role. I'm not saying the sun is responsible for climate change, but it's modifying climate change. Our Earth's climate change would not be as would be a lot worse if the sun was not now cooler than it ought to be. We've been going through a sun cool down period. Also, the sun will ultimately destroy our planet, you know. So we've had life on Earth for almost 4 billion years. And it would be nice to think that life on Earth, Pat, will continue for another 4. But it turns out that Earth will not even have 1 billion years of life, and that's because the sun is getting 10% hotter every billion years, and it's going to destroy all earthly life in about 1.1 billion years. So for all those different aspects, in a lot of different ways, the sun calls the shots. It's fascinating, and the people who are behind it. You know, you asked about the sun's heartbeat. The stories of the quirky, weird people who made the discoveries. And some of them were bitter. Some of them were kind of sad sack. The guy who discovered ultraviolet rays, for example, 1 year after William Herschel discovered heat from the sun, infrared, this German discovered ultraviolet, and nobody believed him because he believed in ghosts and he kept spouting off about weird stuff. So he died young, in poverty, and it wasn't until long after his death that he was credited for discovering ultraviolet, the parts of the sun's rays that burn us at the beach. So there's a lot of human stories involved in the sun too. As we watch the moon now leave its syzygy, S-Y-Z-Y-G-Y. Do you play Scrabble, Pat, ever?
Not often enough.
Well, for our Scrabble players, the word syzygy sounds like a good Scrabble word. It means when 3 celestial bodies form a straight line. And that's what we just saw. We just saw Earth, the moon, and the sun perfectly line up in a straight line. And that was syzygy. So happy syzygy to everybody, and happy syzygy to you too, Pat.
Oh, I appreciate that, Bob. I appreciate it.
I'd get you a Hallmark card that wished you a good syzygy today, but I think it would be tough to find.
Yes, probably would be. So here we go. We're winding down the show. You can see the moon is now leaving the shadow of the sun, I guess. Am I right in saying that? Or is that not a correct statement?
No. The other way around. I know you meant it the other way around. You've just been on too many hours. You know, the sun's casting, making the moon cast a shadow. Yeah. So, and that shadow is now sweeping over the parts of Earth where the sun has already set. So it means the annularity is now over for planet Earth. Somewhere in space, the moon's shadow continues to splay out into space. The moon shadow travels about 250,000 miles. Earth's shadow goes for 1 million miles. Our shadow does better. We have a shadow whose tip isn't reached into 1 million miles away from us. That's too close to ever hit the nearest planets, like Mars. Mars isn't the nearest planet, but it's the nearest planet where a shadow could reach, because Venus, the nearest planet, is never opposite us, where our shadow is even pointed. So the only object in the celestial neighborhood that can cast a shadow that can reach another object is that's what we saw tonight. The moon casting a shadow on planet Earth.
Right.
That's what we witnessed.
Wow. Now, I want to talk to you, because you mentioned it before. You said what's going to happen to the sun? You said the sun, we only have 1 billion years left. Is the sun going to just blow up, or are you saying it's going to turn into what's it going to do to destroy Earth?
Since its creation, it gets 10% hotter and brighter every billion years. And for the first few billion years of our history, Pat, we were able to compensate. Earth's atmosphere changed its composition, and we got used to the warmer temperatures. But all the experts say that we can't compensate anymore. For the next 10% rise in the sun's luminosity, there's nothing we can do about it, and Earth will just keep getting hotter and hotter until the worldwide temperatures will be 700 degrees. And a car air conditioning unit will not be enough. You can't just buy the latest model car and just keep the air conditioning on and be okay. No, the Earth's oceans will all boil away. A permanent cloud cover of steam will cover the Earth. That will trap in the remaining heat, and it's calculated that everywhere temperatures are going to be 700 degrees Fahrenheit around the clock. So that's the end of the line. That's the end of earthly life. We've only got 1.1 billion years left to make our mischief.
That's interesting. Now, Bob, I'm looking at the New Mexico feed. I know it's probably getting very low in the sky there. Is that what we're seeing right now? It's probably, as the sun is setting or going down, yeah, it looks like it's starting to get so low that they're not able to image it.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Right.
And,
yeah, so we're basically stuck on California now, and you can tell that's getting low too.
Yeah, one of the ways we can tell that it's getting low is that the shape of the sun is changing. Notice, we've all noticed that when we look at the sun near the horizon, you know, it gets very fat, it looks squashed. That's caused by refraction, the bending of sunlight through the thick air. Now, down near the horizon, look at this. We just saw some clouds now near the horizon starting to cover up the sun, because we're looking through 14 times more air when the sun is low than when it's up high. So now we're starting to get the refraction effects. Now, it's too bad we didn't have the annularity when the sun was low, because we had that over Southern California a few years back, where we had that ring of fire while the sun was just sitting over the ocean, and it was spectacular. Instead, we're about to lose the sun from everywhere as it sets.
Right, right. Well, I'm trying to actually pin. I'm looking at this right now as we wind down the show. I'm looking at how much time of the show's left here. We've got about, actually we got 25 minutes left if the feeds can handle it. We'll see.
It can handle that low sun. But you know what? Those clouds passing in front of the sun are adding kind of an interesting foreground effect, don't you think, to this? Look at that.
Yeah,
because,
actually. It is. It's pretty cool. I'm sending out a pin it tweet so people can see this. This is so cool. This pin it thing is awesome. I have to say, it's pretty impressive how this thing works. That we can share photos this easily now. So, California. Let me just finish typing this. Bob, go ahead and talk more about what we're seeing.
Sure. And you know, it came off very well tonight. I must say that annularity, where the ring was perfect from New Mexico, and almost perfect. It was still a very, very nice ring, as seen from California, showing that our people out there in California were just slightly off the center line, revealing the interesting geometry, more than interesting. The fact that from different places on Earth, different viewers and different of our Slooh feeds were showing the moon-sun lineup a little differently. Some were askew, some were perfect rings of the same thickness. And it's just astonishing to me that the moon is near enough to us so that just different locations a few hundred miles apart sees it from a different angle and sees a different site. You know, we got different views, not because of weather, but because of the different angle of looking at the moon from different parts of the Earth. And this is so cool. If this doesn't take us away from the noise of politics and you know, earthly cares, I don't know what would. Really, I'm so glad that we had multiple places, because in order to show our Slooh feeds, because if we ran into internet bandwidth problems the way we did for Matt Francis at the Grand Canyon, we had other feeds to carry us along. And I know we're going to do the same thing for the transit of Venus. And that's one of the things that Slooh does to ensure success, is that we have enough feeds. Either we use our own observatories, which we have on a couple of different continents, or we use our mobile telescopes to ensure that if there's clouds or bandwidth problems or something else, we can still bring the images.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's what it takes. I mean, we have to. And we talked about this a little earlier, but when we do these big events especially, we have to have multiple feeds, because there's so many things that can go wrong. From technical to bandwidth to weather. I mean, it's unreal. And but look, this event came off great. We're really appreciative of everyone who participated, specifically the University of New Mexico. I really appreciate it. You guys did an awesome feed. Matt Marula out in Red Bluff, California. Awesome job. Matt Francis, he got one image up before his bandwidth went down. I know he spent a lot of time prepping too. It would have been cool to see him
he spent so much time on this. Weeks ahead of time, going out there, setting up his solar telescopes. But as I said earlier, you can get a mule at the Grand Canyon, but you can't get bandwidth.
I think what I'm going to do is I got to get, for the people who are just new to Slooh or haven't experienced this before, I'm going to do a solar show for everyone. You got to check out Matt when he does a live solar show. You can see the flares. It's pretty amazing stuff. So we'll definitely tweet out about that, or share it to you if you liked us, or subscribe to us, or if you circled us in G+, you can keep updated on these events. Sometimes we just decide to do one. Weather does play a big role in what we do. So if it's clear one week, hey, let's go check out something. So that's what makes it fun and educational.
Yeah, it looks like we lost our. That's now too low in New Mexico.
Yeah, New Mexico is. It's dead. It's dead. It's dead. It's dead, Jim.
Yeah. I know what that's from. That's from Star Trek.
Oh, Bob, you're very smart, man. I'm gonna turn off the feed there. You're a very smart man. All right.
People who don't know what that illusion was, we recently lost the actor who played Dr. McCoy, DeForest Kelley, who played Dr. McCoy on the original Star Trek, and he was talking about the line that he had to say more than any other on Star Trek. As various creatures got killed or some of their crew members got killed, he'd have to look up and say, "He's dead, Jim." Or sometimes he would say, "He's dead, Jim." Or sometimes he'd say, "Jim, he's dead." And so that was his line over it. "He's dead, Jim." So he was suggesting that on his own tombstone, Pat, they should just write, "He's dead."
That's pretty good. I hope he did that. I mean,
I wonder if they did that.
All right, I just turned off the feed to New Mexico, so that feed is now offline. Again, I want to thank the University of New Mexico for providing it. It was awesome.
Yeah,
and again, I keep saying this all night, but if anyone, you have an institution, observatories, private clubs or equipment, we work with all types to provide live feeds for this stuff. So please email me at Patrick, Patrick @slooh.com, or you can just go to the About section on Slooh on the footer there and just click to the business development. We'd love to work with you if you got equipment and the know-how and the bandwidth, of course. Just let me know. It'd be great. So Bob, we're back in the last 20 minutes, believe it or not, and this has been awesome, man. I really appreciate all your efforts. Bob has been with Slooh. Slooh has been around actually since 2003, believe it or not. So but it's always been strictly a membership program. We just started doing these live events actively about 6 to 9 months ago, and Bob, it's awesome to have someone of your caliber actively participating with us. We really appreciate you taking the time, as always.
It's a pleasure. It's an honor. It's really an honor, because this is the first time in human history that democratically the universe can be brought to everyone on Earth. I mean, just think about how powerful that is. There are other people who are trying that to bring celestial images, but they don't have the bandwidth, they don't have the technology. Slooh has, of course, proprietary technology to bring natural color images in real time. So we're the only ones doing this, and it's historic. It's historic. So, you have to feel honored to be part of the first historic bringing of the universe to everyone on planet Earth who tunes in. It's an honor for me to be part of that.
Yeah, I'm glad you say that, because it is. It's fun to do these shows. I mean, we're trying to build this as a platform for lots of stuff. As you can see, counting down now with the moon anniversary, we have a lot of different events that we do, And so please keep in touch with us, coming back to the homepage, checking it out, or just monitoring your Twitter feeds and stuff like that, because we'll keep you updated about when the next show is going to occur. So that's good. So Bob, here we are. I'm just going to tell people again, please consider membership. It's really fun. If you really want to get into this and learn more about how to not only control high-powered observatories and snap your own pics, but also learn more just about what it takes to use a telescope. And because I think, as we've noted, Bob, as I've talked about before, I think people have lost touch with the universe because of the city light pollution, because of our daily stress in our lives about what's going on in the world. And I think it is it kind of brings a sense of relief, or I'm trying to look for the right word, that a sense of calm when you start thinking about your origins, about the universe, about what's out there. And Slooh's got an amazing membership, of that active membership of people who coordinate with each other, work on tracking comments and stuff using our equipment, but they also talk about how to image stuff with your own equipment. And telescopes are cool to use. They're hard to use. They're not easy, but it's something that you might get into just by becoming a member to Slooh, and it helps support the programming. So you get multiple benefits to becoming a member. And if you can't swing that, and I totally understand, please consider a contribution to the programming, because it does help us retain top talent. That's for sure.
Not to mention, get Pat to come to this eclipse in November.
Yes, it'll help fund my trip to the eclipse. Yes, that would be nice. That would be nice. I need a vacation, man. I haven't had one in a while. I mean, this company is I think I've aged about 5 years since I've worked here, working. And so anyway.
Meantime, with the eclipse, look what we've got left here. We've got the sun getting squashed because it's getting so near the horizon. We've got clouds, a little bit of clouds coming in because near the horizon it's common to have all sorts of stuff down there. The air is 14 times thicker than it is higher up, and so anything in the air is going to be multiplied. We're seeing that effect. And at the same time, the moon now has only about a quarter of the way to go before it leaves it. We talked earlier about different kinds of crescents that, when the moon passes in front of the sun, it makes the sun into a crescent. But look at this. Would you even call this a crescent? I don't know if you could call this a crescent. It just looks like somebody took a bite out of someone with a very even mouth took a bite out of the sun. So we've gone from that very skinny, almost completely circular, and then it did turn circular, annularity, that ring of fire, to this. Shapes that you never see in the sky at any other time. Have you ever seen the moon look like this? No. Anybody who,
no.
You just don't see this at any other time. So we're seeing unusual geometric shapes that are not visible at any other occasion. So forget the science or what's going on behind it and the grand motion, the epic movement of the moon, and the amazing coincidence that the moon and the sun appear the same size, even though they're such different distances and different actual sizes. Beyond all that, just look at how eerie and wild and cool this whole thing is. I mean, this was a great event. I enjoyed this. What Pat and I were talking about is behind the scenes in the months leading up to this. I was telling Pat, it's an annular eclipse. That's not a total eclipse. It doesn't have the impact for astronomers. Do we really want to cover this whole thing? But I'd have to say, after being here, you were right, Pat. This was a knockout event. It was very cool to look at. And I know we've got a lot of media attention. A lot of people joined us for this, and I'll bet every one of them is as happy as we are with this.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it really came out nice, and it's when we pull these things off, which is every time, to be honest, when it all comes together, there's a lot of work and sweat equity that goes into this thing, and it's good to see it actually happen. And because I could go on and on about the technical difficulties of it.
Oh yeah, remember the Times Square billboard thing?
Yeah. We actually had it. If you guys don't remember, we actually had a live feed of the lunar eclipse that was taking place in the United States but
this
it was
a
on
few years ago.
It was a live feed at Times Square of the lunar eclipse. It was Slooh's feed. So we've been in a lot of places. It was pretty cool. I mean, we have photos of that. We've actually had our feeds in the Google Doodle in June 2011 with Google. That was a fascinating event, and it was huge. Bob was a part of that one as well. And these things are we're getting really good at it now. It's taken a while for us to get our sea legs on this stuff, and so we're looking forward to producing more quality programs in the near future.
And fortunately, the sky is cooperating, because just this year, for example, we'll have that transit of Venus that nobody alive will ever see again, and that's coming up on June 5th. We'll have some amazing things happening with Saturn and Jupiter later this year. We'll have a total eclipse of the sun on November 13th, where we'll see the flames at the edge of the sun leaping off into space, and the sun's strange atmosphere also leaping off into space. And Matt Francis and I and Pat will be down there in Australia to bring that to you live.
Yes, I'm gaming to get down there. I after doing this, I tell you, it's gonna be that's gonna be a pretty spectacular event, that's for sure. So we got. It looks like, I'm looking at the counter, about 13 minutes left, guys, before we're gonna sign off, or about 10 minutes or so. We're really starting to. You can see the eclipse is almost ending here.
Yeah, we don't blame anybody. Anybody who, we've lost our New Mexico feed. The sun has just gotten too low. The Grand Canyon was, we didn't have the bandwidth. We had our solar expert on earlier. We had another solar astronomer on even earlier than that during the Japanese feed. And from California, where we've had this fantastic feed all night, now the moon is only a quarter of the way to go. So, we don't blame anybody who has seen, an hour of this or parts of it to say, okay, I got the idea, I'm going to leave. So anybody who does leave before the show officially ends, I want to thank them, too, for joining them. You're making history here with Slooh. Pat's being a little bit modest with this, because when in history has the world watched celestial events, have watched things as grand as the sun and the moon from different parts of the world live as it's happening? And we shared this all together tonight. So this was great. Thanks for being here.
Absolutely. I concur with that, buddy. I concur. So, well, what else could I talk to you about? My mind is great. Is today Sunday night? I'm just kidding. Yeah, in fact, I had to cut out of my son's baseball game to get here for the first show, because the traffic was off the hook. That's why we went live a little earlier than expected today with the Japanese audio broadcast. We weren't going to even have an audio broadcast, but once I got the whiff of the amount of traffic rolling in, we just didn't want to just have no one. So I came and did it with Lucie and Duncan. It was fun, as always. And anyway, what else can we talk about, Bob, while we wind this down? We have got about 10 minutes left. As you can
let's see. Okay, let's see what's left. What's ahead for the moon? Once we have an actor finishing up a particular movie, the reporters always say, okay, well, what do you have next? What's next? Well, there's the moon leaving the edge of the sun. And once it's off the edge of the sun, there's no way you can see it. There's no telescope on Earth that can see the moon next to the sun. It's just gone in space. The sun's brilliance makes it impossible. So when will you next catch a glimpse of it? Tomorrow evening at sunset. Look low towards into the twilight, just above the sunset point. Binoculars will help. And you will see the thinnest little, like a little fingernail clipping, like a hair's width, the thinnest possible moon. It will be just a beautiful sight, and that will be this moon, which has just been new. The middle of the eclipse marked the moment of new moon, and you will see the first returning moon. There were cultures that celebrated that, Pat, throughout history, when they could first see the crescent after its absence. It disappears for a few days and then it comes back. Islam, Islam is, of course, no longer in favor in the United States, but the flags of every Islamic nation have a crescent moon and the star Venus next to it to celebrate what we're going to see and what you can see every month. That is the return of the moon as a new crescent. So look for that the next day or two, because that's where the moon is headed. The moon has just moved from the morning sky to the evening sky, where it will be for the next 2 weeks. And
now, Bob, I was going to ask you a quick question about, are we going to get any more of these annular solar eclipses on the U.S. soil, or is it going to be another 18 years, do you know, off the top of your head?
Not off the top of my head. I have a chart here. I can look that up for you. I know there's going to be an annular eclipse next May 10th, but not from here. Oh, yeah, I do happen to know. I believe the very next one in the United States, I do have this in my head. It will be in the year 20, because October, when is it, 14th, 2023. 2023 will be the next one in the United States.
Wow, so, again, it's a pretty long way.
11 years from now.
Wow.
Before that, we're going to have the much more important total eclipse in the United States, and that's, again, on August 21st of 2017. It's been a long time. It'll have been 38 years at that point for anybody in the United States to have seen a total eclipse, the most amazing spectacle in all of nature. That one outdoes any other kind of eclipse. It outdoes a great comet or a good display of the aurora borealis. And that path, that track, just like you, Pat, presented us with that track of annularity, that track is going to move from Oregon right over Jackson, Wyoming, and then over southern Indiana, over Nashville, then the Carolinas. And so all along that track, we'll see not just the moon sort of covering the sun, but we'll see darkness at noon. We'll see the stars come out. We'll see flames shooting out of the sun's edge. That will be a total eclipse of the sun, and it's only 5 years away now. We don't even have that long to wait.
Wow, that's going to be awesome. I can't wait for that one. So I'm just going to pin this last one before we sign off here. Sorry to do this while midstream.
That's all right. While you're doing that, let me mention that the 3 sets of sunspots, all of which are significant, these are storms on the sun, have now been re-exposed by the disappearing sun. And each one of those spots, if you look closely on the sun, although now, look at that, behind some clouds all of a sudden. But when the clouds, if the clouds go away, you'll see those sunspots larger than the planet Earth. Areas, as Lucie Green explained earlier tonight, where material on the sun is slowed down by the extreme magnetic field there. The magnetic field around sunspots is 5,000 times stronger than it is on the rest of the sun. So because of that, it forces the hot material from down below to slow down as it tries to get to the surface. Slower means cooler. Cooler means less brilliant. Less brilliant means it's a spot, a dark spot. So those sunspots are just places where solar material is being squeezed slower and then forced to cool down. Hey, it looks like we're losing our California feed now.
Yeah, it's getting pretty low, it looks like. So we're I'm just kind of looking at let's see here. Hold on. I'm seeing how much time is left in the actual feeds. All right, we're down to about 5 minutes, Bob. So looks like the feeds are starting to get too dark, and it's we're going to be signing off here shortly. So again, before we go, guys, think about being a member. There's a lot of benefits besides just supporting the live celestial programming. Think about if you want to learn how to control high-powered observatories around the world, snap pics. Click on that membership link. There was a special offer that's been offered today only. It'll go away shortly. And so please think about signing up for a yearly membership, I recommend, but you can certainly go with the quarterly. If not, any contribution would be awesome for the programming so we can retain talent like a Bob Berman of Astronomy Magazine and many others that we work with. That would be awesome as well. So, Bob, as you can see, the feeds are now getting really dark. So
yeah, that sun is getting low, and the moon is just about finished with it. But as this event is ending, events that are just as good or better are just on the horizon for us, aren't they? Especially that transit of Venus on June 5th. I'm really looking forward to that. We're going to have remote telescopes set up all around the world that can see it. You can't see it from Europe, so we're not bothering with Europe, but we're going to be in Hawaii, and where else? Feeds in California. Right. We'll have a feed even in the eastern United States. People are organizing everywhere. There are clubs and historic landmarks. We're going to bring you one feed from Mohonk Mountain House, a famous historic landmark in the Northeast that has been around since the 1800s. Crowds will gather there to look at the transit of Venus, and the Slooh feeds will originate from there as well. So we're going to have a lot of cool stuff. That's coming up pretty soon on June 5th. Yeah,
it's a couple weeks away, and I'm going to lose a lot. I'm going to lose a lot of sleep for that. I mean, I got to go back to back on this stuff, man. Jeez. Yeah. And I got two more. We got two other events in between, so it'll be fun though. I'm looking forward to them. They're always fun to produce. So, yeah, Bob, I think it's time for us to say goodbye tonight. It looks like the feeds are almost over. In about a couple of minutes, you're going to see the feeds at 2. You look at the mission time, elapsed mission time at 2 minutes 30 seconds. The feeds will click over back into our recap mode, and the show will be officially over. So I think it's Bob. I'm running out of things to say.
well, we did it. We did it. You know that old thing on vaudeville where the main act, that everybody was waiting to see, was delayed because his streetcar didn't get there, and so they'd say to somebody else, "All right, you get on stage. Come on, do something." And he'd juggle or do some tap dancing. There's no need. We got this great annular eclipse. We pulled it off. We had the guests. We did it. Now the sun is low. It's getting covered with clouds. The moon has almost completely lost it. So, what can we add to that? It was a great event, and more great events to come in the weeks and months to come. It's Slooh.com. You can always see it counting down here and seeing when the next live event will happen. I'm partial, frankly, to what our Slooh telescopes show. I love the non-events. We're talking about we're kind of getting event-driven here, and I understand it because the transit and the eclipse and all these other things are great. But to see spiral galaxies colliding with others, and to see their true blue color, or those campfire orange colors in the cores of galaxies, to see galaxies in true color with all the details, to see Saturn with its multiple rings through the Slooh telescopes. To me, you don't even need an event, because there's the universe, and what's more beautiful than that? So that's what Slooh members can do, and I hope some people watching this tonight decide to become Slooh members, because it's kind of cool, isn't it? More than kind of.
Yes, it is. It's very cool. And you get a chance to talk with Bob one-on-one. How cool could that be?
Well, thank you.
Anyway, Bob, I appreciate your time as always. It's awesome. I think I'm going to sign off and go relax at the house on my Sunday night. I appreciate it again. It's getting late for you, too. You got to get to bed. It's past your bedtime. 10:30, it's past your bedtime.
Okay. So
you go drink some warm milk. Get ready for bed. In fact, just before you get off, Bob, there's one thing we're going to do. I'm going to tell people we're going to do this. You're going to do a live show from the jacuzzi soon. We got to do that.
Oh, we've talked about that. You know what we have to do ahead of time. I'm not going to mention it here.
Okay. All right. We'll figure it out. All right. Looks like the show is going to end here in 30 seconds. So for Slooh Space Camera, this is Patrick Paolucci, Bob Berman from Astronomy Magazine. Thank you guys for coming tonight. And thank you, Slooh team, for the great feeds. And we'll talk to you guys later. Think about membership, guys. Think about the membership. All right.
Thanks.
Have a good night, everyone. Take care.
Good
Broadcast
night.
out. Absolutely having fun. I'm always having fun with these events. The big ones are, they're more stress than those for obvious reasons. This particular event was picked up pretty big by the media, which was expected, of course. And, Slooh offers the best platform really to experience it. Not only do we give you multiple feeds at the same time, but you can print. You can actually snap pics with the pin it button feature, and you can channel surf and see the panel all at once. I'm gonna step over here really quick, grab something. I think, did Lucy come in? Did you see her?
Yeah,
Hi.
Lucy's there. Yep.
Hi, Bob. How are you?
Good, Lucy. How are you?
Yeah, very good, thank you. Yeah, I've been having fun watching the Japanese feed.
Yeah, you're looking good. You're looking younger and younger.
Oh, you're so kind. You've made my night.
What about, how do I look? I probably look haggard, man.
Yeah, you look terrible, Pat.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
I can only see the top of your head now. It's like you're hiding.
Yeah, I know. I'm doing I'm multitasking right here in prep.
Poor thing.
Yeah, I know. It's fun. So if anyone's on the home page, we're just getting ready for the show. It's going to begin in about 10 minutes.
Right.
We have 3 feeds rolling in. I'm looking at them right now. They all look good. So I'm excited
Pat, just
about those.
do me a favor. Is my book backwards or forward? Does it look like it's reversed, or is it forward?
Forwards.
Okay, good. Thank you.
It's upside down
Yeah,
now.
looks good.
All right. Oh, he's already got it out. I mean, can you wait till the show begins before we start promoting?
I just remember yesterday how everything was reversed.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's reversed on the home page.
I just didn't want it to look like the
What are you talking? You're talking the Klingon on me? Let's see.
No, it's backwards. That's the title of my last book, backwards.
Right. Okay. So anyway, I'm just double checking a few things, guys. That's why I'm kind of hunched on my.
No. Go ahead. You know, with 4 hours to fill too. You know, I'm not kidding. I'm looking at the table of contents in the Sun's Heartbeat just to see solar topics that can maybe fill in some of the time here.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
4 hours.
4 hours? We're not going 4 hours.
Oh, what are we going? 3? What are we going?
A couple hours, 2.5.
All right, 2. That's not too bad.
Yeah, don't get me stressed out more.
Lucy, here's some possible topics. You know, if we really need time to fill, particles from the sun that influence us. Particles from the sun, because that's kind of sounds eerie.
Yeah. Yeah, we can talk about that. Yeah, no problem.
We could talk a little bit about how some people hide from the sun the last 30 years because of skin cancer, and there's more and more evidence that vitamin D maybe could save our lives, and maybe we shouldn't quite hide as much as we're hiding from the sun.
Yeah, that's been a real interest in Britain recently, and I met a pediatrician when I did an interview once, and he was really interested in looking at solar UV outputs and cases of rickets. So people are thinking about that in Britain.
Good.
What else did you have in mind?
All right. Well, I'm just looking at the table of contents. I'm just, making this up right now. Oh, here's something. How we've more and more found that magnetism, which means so little to us here on Earth, is a clue for a lot of the stuff that goes on in the sun, and the tachocline, the discovery of the tachocline. I think it was only back in 1989, and how magnetism, what does that mean to us? Nothing. It's weak here on Earth, but that's sort of the wizard behind the curtain when it comes to a lot of the solar phenomena.
You there?
I think Lucy vanished.
Oh, she did that last time too, so let me, I gotta unplug this. Our feed's still going. My computer's lagging all of a sudden.
You know, all this time I've been hearing you interview Duncan. Where's that? Is that live somewhere, or why am I hearing that?
Interview Duncan?
Yeah. You and Duncan are talking in my ear here at the Hangout in the background.
Okay. Now remember, we should probably just communicate in the. All right, let's see. Is it paused? Oh, there we are. Okay, I'm gonna tweet out that we're just really quick. Let me. All right, I sent a tweet out. So anyone's on the home page. All right, Lucie should be coming in here any minute. So I see you. You see us below there, yeah?
No. Do not. Nope. I'm just seeing it says it'll begin in a few minutes. I'll refresh.
You should see us, the panel below the viewer. Where are you at?
I'm at Slooh Space Camera live event.
Yeah, look below. You should see us down there, below the viewer, where the feeds are.
Nope. Nope, I don't. I have a still of Lucie Green, not moving. Oh, yeah, there we are now. Okay, here we go.
Yeah, all right. So remember, that's delayed. So don't turn that mute. Make sure that's muted. You could play it, but just mute it.
It's totally muted. It has no sound at all.
All right, good. All right. So Bob, let's just get started. I'm going to get Lucie in here soon. Just for all of you who are joining the website or on the page right now, we're getting prepped for the event. You can see it counting down on the home page of Slooh, about 14 minutes away. The solar eclipse has now left Asia and is probably over the ocean right now as it's making its way to the shores of the western United States. Correct me if I'm wrong, Bob, of course.
No,
Bob is from a...
That's right.
That's right. So, yeah, we're getting ready for the show. We'll introduce Bob once the event officially begins. But we're going to have multiple feeds on this particular event coming out of California, New Mexico, and Arizona, the Grand Canyon. So it should be fascinating stuff. And, you know, Bob, I don't know if I know you were out, so you probably didn't catch it, but the last show from Japan we kind of hopped on, Lucie and Duncan and I hopped on, and the event itself, the weather was pretty poor, so it wasn't great, but it was still fun. It cleared up a little bit, and so it was kind of neat to see it happening. It's kind of neat.
Good. You'll get over it.
Yes, we will. Well, fortunately, the U.S. is much better weather, and I'm seeing some of the previews, and they all look pretty good. So we should be in good shape. Yep, they're all up and running. So I'm looking forward to this one. Let me make sure I get Lucie going. Let me email her really quick. Okay, I emailed her just to make sure she got it. Everything else looks good. So we're T-minus 12 minutes, Bob, so we'll get ready for this.
Okay, how are you doing, Pat? Take a deep breath.
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. I'm having fun.
Good,
These things are so fun to produce, but they're, obviously, as you can imagine, they're a little stressful.
That's right. That's why I'm saying take a couple of meditative deep breaths, and so you yourself project that you're having fun too. Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely back shortly. So we'll have her input on what's going on. So Bob, now talk to us about one of the things we talked about briefly on the last event was it was a little confusing to me when I first started scheduling this thing to think that the event was going to take place first in Asia in the morning and then come over here in the afternoon. That's kind of counterintuitive because we know the sun goes from east to west. And so I was like, well, how could this start in Asia first?
Right.
Maybe
well, it's because,
yeah,
be glad to, Pat. It's because as the moon casts its shadow, it just happens to be casting it right onto planet Earth. Moon is just a little bit too far away for the shadow to reach Earth, but it's heading in the direction of Earth, and it sweeps over Japan, and then it moves eastward. The average speed of the moon is 2,237 miles an hour, if I remember right, and so very rapidly, people under the shadow are seeing the eclipse. And what's very cool is that in California or New Mexico or the Grand Canyon, where you can click on it, the shadow has not yet started. In other words, the moon has not yet touched the edge of the sun, and we are going to see it happen any moment. But while I have Lucie on, I want to mention one thing about your introduction. I appreciate you mentioning The Sun's Heartbeat, my popular book about the sun. But in this book, a lot of the information came from not only historical information by solar researchers, but by interviewing people like Lucie Green. So I don't want to, I found out almost everything I know about the sun by writing a book. They say writing a book is the best way you learn about it. But Lucie is the researcher. This is her life is spent studying and researching, and she has a doctorate in solar astronomy. So this is the person who could give us more information than we even want to hear tonight. But she's the expert.
Yeah, too much probably. I just want to check that you can hear me, okay, Bob?
Yes, you're fine. We hear you.
I can certainly talk about the sun as long as you want. Excellent, good.
Excellent, excellent. Well, I'm showing that this is supposed to start up. The partial phase is going to start up in about 5 minutes or so.
Oh, that's so exciting because and you know where it's going to start first? Of course, our California feed. This is so cool. It's almost like those Will Smith movies where it's the end of the world and where are the first where's the first part of the world going to be destroyed by the aliens? It'll be here. Then it'll be here. Then it'll be here. Well, we can watch the live feed from California, and that's where the moon is first going to be seen to touch the edge of the sun. Then it'll be moving toward the east from there. So it's very cool. We're going to actually see it happen. We also have one of the maps on for you. So if you keep clicking that button on the live screen there, you can see the track of annularity. That is the place where the moon is going to pass centrally across the sun, and where ultimately, an hour from now, we're going to get a ring of fire. But in a much wider area in the west that is not along that ribbon that we have marked out for you. Instead, people there will see the eclipse happen at an angle, and they'll see the moon partially blocking out the sun. So it's also a lesson in geometry, a vivid lesson in showing us the relative distances of the moon and the sun from us, and the speed of the moon as it crosses the sun's face. So it's a living example, a living demonstration of the solar system and the clockwork mechanism of the solar system. And to me, that's the most exciting thing, rather than the science. Frankly, there's not a lot of science behind it, but there's a lot of thrill.
Right, right. So, Dr. Green, why don't you tell us a little bit about the sun and its activity that we've been seeing this year? I mean, I guess the last couple of years it's actually picked up, and as a solar researcher, perhaps you could shed some light on what's going on with the sun and what's been happening lately.
Yeah, so the sun has an activity cycle that's best seen by looking at these dark spots on the surface of the sun called sunspots. And actually, in the California feed that I'm looking at now, you can see some of these black spots on the sun if you look quite carefully. So there are sort of three groups that I can see at the moment, but actually if you zoomed in even more you'd be able to see smaller black spots, so smaller sunspots on the surface of the sun. And actually the numbers have been picking up over the last year or two, and they'll continue to increase probably into next year, and then they'll start to fade again. And if you look at the sunspots over many, many years, you see that they rise and fall in over a time scale of about 11 years. So the sunspot cycle, or more generally the solar activity cycle, lasts about 11 years. And I'm a researcher who studies solar activity, and that is big eruptions that come from these sunspot regions. So the more I see on the sun, the more excited I get, because that means lots more solar activity.
That's awesome. So I just want to throw out a quick note. If you're on the Slooh.com homepage, you can click the chat Slooh conversation box, and if you post in questions to our panel, I will try to pick them off from that. No, man, I don't know where you're getting that from.
I don't know either.
You can still hear that?
Now I'm hearing Lucie talking.
Well, you're on the delay or something. You must have something running. Look at your windows.
Thank you. Yeah, maybe I hit the Hangout, the on-air Hangout. That's what.
Yeah. You don't want to turn it on because it's just delayed. It'll screw you up.
Yeah. Let me get off that.
So we're T-minus 6 minutes. If you're listening to this on the homepage of Slooh right now, at T-minus 0, you'll get flicked over into live mode.
Okay.
What's that, Bob? Go ahead and get back in.
I'm gonna go out. Invite me back in from scratch, okay?
You should still see the invite.
All right.
Okay. Well, T-minus. What's that? Oh shit! What happened? Bob, you there? Bob?
Oh, that's much better.
Are you back?
I'm back.
All right, I had a crash warning. That's why I was worried.
No, I'm back. Oh, that's so great that all those voices got out of my head. I thought that was something that was supposed to be happening there. Good.
All right, I just want to make sure.
But no Lucie here.
Well, I see a little. You see that?
Yeah, I see a little a silhouette of her, but the real Lucie's a lot prettier.
Yeah, I don't know if my computer is starting to.
Oh no.
Can you hear me?
I hear you perfectly.
And can you go to the homepage of Slooh? You see everything okay?
Yes, I see everything that I'm seeing in the Google Hangout. I'm seeing on the homepage.
Okay. I just want to make sure. Is it looking pretty?
Yeah, looks good. Looks good.
All right.
But there's no Lucie.
Yeah, she'll come back. She'll come back. I think I'm being Nortonized. All right, so okay. So anyway, yeah, I got confirmation. We're all good. So Lucie should be coming in back. So Bob, let's just get started here. We're going to be counting down. I'm just getting this plug-in. Something plug-in is not working on my end. I don't. It's interrupting me, but it doesn't seem to affect the feed. At T-0, which is in about 3 minutes, the viewer will flick over to live. If you're on the home page right now and it doesn't flick over for some reason, usually it takes 30 seconds to a minute, if not more, due to the amount of traffic that's actually on the home page right now, waiting for this event to begin. But you can refresh your browser at some point if you have to, just so you know. And hopefully we'll get Lucie back in time for the broadcast. So, Bob, as we're waiting for Lucie, am I nice and clear?
You're loud and clear.
Okay, great. So yeah, I just got confirmation too. The audio is now been routed into the your mobile devices for iOS. So if you have an iPad or an iPhone, you should hear us as well. Unfortunately, Android support is not there yet for that. It will be up probably in a week or so, just so you guys know out there. And look, we're getting ready here to start this up. We've got 3 feeds coming into this particular show, one out of California, one out of Arizona in the Grand Canyon, and the last one is going to be out of the University of New Mexico with a feed partner. So we're really excited about that happening at this time. And you see me up there? Yep, I'm still working. I just keep getting these weird messages, but it looks like the feed's working.
Yeah, you're looking good. You're on.
I'm looking good. That's what I like to hear. That's what I like to hear. You got to tell my wife that. All right. So anyway, we're excited about this broadcast, and we'll start up officially at T-0. So just hang tight. At T-0, the live feeds will kick in, and when that happens, you'll see the viewer page transform itself into a live channel changer, and you guys can out there feel free to check out all the different feeds that we have available for you. You can pin your photos if you'd like, or the chat box will appear and you can ask questions in our chat. So we're excited about that too. Anyway.
And Pat, I don't see the chat box, but if somebody asks questions, could you read them and repeat it to me if you want me to answer a question? Just read me, pick a question, read it to me, and I'll field it.
Absolutely, absolutely. That would be great. That would be great. So are you still seeing it counting down? Are everything good on the home page for you?
Yeah, looks good.
I'm getting a null response. Bob, I might have to get back on in the event that I get cut out.
Yeah, it says 36 seconds. It's still counting down.
Okay, I'm just gonna close that one. I don't know what's going on. I keep getting these plug-in issues. Is that Lucie coming back in?
No, I don't see her yet.
That usually is a noise when that happens, that she's trying to get in here.
There she comes. There she is. She's back. She's back. Look at that. Looking prettier than ever.
Oh, she's back. Okay.
I don't know what's happening to my connection here. Sorry about that.
Oh, she's back. Okay. Okay, guys, everyone's back in the attack. All right. So look, we just switched over to live. You should have seen that on your homepage, Bob. If you're on the Slooh.com site, you notice that you should be seeing some live pictures. There are views coming in from our telescopes. I've got 3 right now: Grand Canyon, New Mexico, and California. So,
I'm just hitting the refresh button to see what we get. I do see the 3 of us at the bottom of the page.
Right. Well, if you do have an issue for some reason, you may have to refresh your browser. Given
I see the sun now. I got it. Beautiful sun image from California now. Beautiful sun image.
Yeah. There you go. There you go. So guys, the chat box is up. We're back. You should see this live feed in the homepage of Slooh.com. If for some reason you don't, then you probably have to
refresh the page.
Refresh your browser.
Yeah.
So Bob, why don't you get us started? I'm going to introduce you guys really quick before we get rolling. With us today we have Bob Berman from Astronomy Magazine and author of the recent book, The Sun's Heartbeat. So obviously he knows quite a bit about the sun. And Bob's been a long-time Slooh friend. He's been with us working on various projects now, probably 5+ years. and we're very honored to have him on these shows, especially shows like this that are so significant.
My pleasure.
Also with us, we have Dr. Lucie Green, and any of you who were on the Japan show earlier tonight will recognize her, obviously. Dr. Green has also been with Slooh now for almost a year on some projects. She was part of the original broadcast we did with Google on the June 2011 Lunar Eclipse, where we actually provided live feeds to the Google Doodle. I don't know if some of you remember that or not. But a part of that broadcast, we had Bob, who's here today, we had Lucie, and we had Duncan, who was on earlier. So all three have taken an active role in Slooh, and we're happy that they've joined us. So Dr. Green actually is a solar researcher out of the Mullard Space Science Laboratory, UCL's Department of Space and Climate Physics. So she obviously knows a lot about the sun as well, and we're really excited about this event because we have 3 really nice feeds coming in right now from 3 different locations. Just so you know, a little quick background on these feeds. We have one coming out of California. All these are live. This is in Red Bluff, California, on a mobile installation that we have set up that's being helmed by Slooh's own Matt Marula. We have another feed out of the Grand Canyon coming in from a friend of ours, Matt Francis, who plays a significant role in helping us do live events. And the third one actually is unique. It's from the University of New Mexico. So that particular event is being offered up from some of our friends, our new friends in New Mexico, the University of New Mexico, and we hope to be doing a lot more with them also over time. And that kind of goes back to what Slooh does, is we have the ability to put these together with feed partners from around the world. So if you do have a facility of some sort and like to join in on these events, please shoot me an email at patrick@slooh.com. So now, Bob, let's get started really quick before we get going further here. What is your thoughts about this annular eclipse? If I understand it correctly, the last one that hit the U.S. soil was about 18 years ago. Is that what I was reading about?
Well, I remember on May 10th, 1994, there was one up in our neck of the woods here in the northeastern United States. The weather was clear, and it was pretty darn special. And before I even speak further about this, I'd like to remind people that they can go from one feed to another by clicking on those little greenish blue triangles. That all of the instruments that you mentioned, Pat, are running now. They're all up. It's not that you even have to wait. You yourself can go from the Grand Canyon to New Mexico and to California and see what's happening on the sun live as it is happening. So it's very exciting. I'm very excited by it. Yes, we have not had one in the United States for a long time, although we do get annular eclipses fairly often, and we'll talk about future ones, I think, a little bit later on. Especially when we get our solar researcher back on, Lucie.
Yeah, unfortunately, Lucie dropped out again, so she'll come back. It's a bandwidth issue, but she'll